It is 6:01 p.m. and I now call the April 6, 2026 meeting of the City of Cheyenne Planning Commission to order. Staff, could you please call the roll?
Bob Mathia. Lonnie Olson.
Here.
Amy Hernandez.
Present via Zoom.
Daryl Hibbins.
Here.
Megan Connor.
Present remotely.
Tony Laird.
Here.
Boyd Wiggum. Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Okay, the first item is the minutes for February 17th, 2026 meeting. If I can have a motion.
Chair, I would so move.
Second. Any comments or corrections for those minutes? Okay, all in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Okay, those minutes pass. Now we do the minutes for March 2nd, 2026. Need a motion?
Chair, I would so move.
Second. Any comments or questions, corrections for those minutes? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. So that passes. And the good news is our real chair has just made an appearance. So for the record, Boyd Wiggum is now in attendance and can take over. We just finished the minutes.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Laird. That brings us to item A. Will staff please read it into the record?
Item A, PUDC-26-34 Sweetgrass PUD Amendment.
Thank you. Do we have an agent for the applicant?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. Casey Palma, Palma Land Planning Agent for the owner. So what you have before you tonight is a major amendment to the PUD. The reason it is major is because it deals with the land use areas in the PUD and adjustments to the land use boundaries. The PUD park has not been developed by the city. There's several reasons for that since the inception of Sweetgrass, but we've been working with the city on establishing that park and getting the parklands developed. And part of that is the discussions with the park department. The dedicated acreage of 72, more or less 72 acres is more parkland than the city wanted to take on. So Sweetgrass does not want to reduce the total park in the project, but this amendment changes the PUD to allow for a 45-acre public park to be placed at the intersection of Murray and Loving Trail where it was originally. And it would also allow for the remainder of 28 acres plus or minus to be developed privately. So whether it would be a private recreation center or developed for playgrounds or trails or other uses privately without being city maintained, this amendment also does that. The only other amendment that's proposed within this is not really related to the park. It would allow for kind of a middle ground amendment to the PUD. So currently there's a minor adjustment in the PUD that would allow for sort of staff approval of minimal changes to the PUD text. And then a major amendment like the one we're in tonight that would allow for land use changes or major adjustments to the PUD. And this amendment before you tonight also would allow for a zone change process. So just like anywhere else in the city, if a landowner or a developer wanted to change an area of Sweetgrass, say from low density to high density, or from commercial to residential or vice versa. The amendment in subsection H would allow for, kind of a standard zone change process to change from one land use within the PUD to another land use within the PUD. With that, I'd be happy to address any questions you might have.
Thank you. Members of the commission, questions for the applicant? Going once, going twice. Mr. Pullman. Yes.
Mr. William, just before my time is closed, I wanted to mention I had received a call today, had a great conversation with a resident in the PUD, and I told him that I would say that we spoke. So I wanted to make sure that I got that off my chest before I stepped down. So he said generally his major concern was just that the park hasn't been developed. I also have communicated with some folks on Facebook in the neighborhood that have similar concerns. So I think everybody wants to see the park developed. And my discussions with Park and my understanding is that moving forward from this amendment and in conjunction with a subdivision plat, that we could get forward on at least some starting points for developing that park. So I told him I would share that with you. He said he didn't have any opposition to that, and he hopes to attend the Public Service Committee meeting next Tuesday, or 2 Tuesdays from now.
Mr. Palma, I do have three questions. Did I hear you correctly that the owner of the developer here would prefer to maintain the full-size park? That would be the owner's preference. Did I understand that correctly, or did I misunderstand?
Yeah, this is not specifically an owner-driven change. In our discussions with the city, community park is generally 45 acres, and that's kind of how they budget and how they break things down. And so when we were saying, which was based on the original calculations when the PUD was created, here's 72 acres that we're going to give to the city. They said, well, hold on, we only want 45 for a community park. So should the 45 be developed as a park and the remainder be developed, there is a provision in the code already to allow it to be residential. There's still a balance of approximately 30 acres that is hoped to be allocated by the developer at some point in the future. We're looking at different options for where that might go, but the city has said, at least for the time being, that their maintenance and ownership provisions should be limited to 45. Since the original code specified, I think, plus or minus 60 acres, and there is in fact 72 reserved. This amendment allows for that to be specifically dedicated to a 45-acre park for now, and then sort of leaves a balance of 30 to be developed elsewhere, potentially by the city, but not promised.
Okay, I wanted to follow up because if I remember right, this was originally dedicated at the same time the city was, I believe, we were voting on $1 million to buy land elsewhere for similarly sized park.
That is
Okay,
correct.
and my other question is as we're looking at this, do I understand correctly that there's, even if the 45 is developed, if the city should have a change of heart in terms of the scope of the park, that's not off the table with this unless the developer goes ahead and develops this for housing before then. Is that correct, or am I misunderstanding?
I'm sorry, can you restate the question?
Am I correct, or am I misunderstanding?
At this time, and with this amendment, the intent is to plat exactly 45 acres, which the city has said is their desired acreage, and then to dedicate that land, and then to work with parks to get that land developed as quickly as possible. As you know, as everybody in the room also knows, it's been a long time coming. So we'd hope to see more development in the park, and there's several reasons for that, not all on the city, but the intent is to have the city and the developer sort of fulfill that promised agreement that there would be a 45-acre community park in this location.
And then, as I understood, 30 acres, wait and see.
30 acres may be developed in the short term for a private recreational use, which I mean, there is a company in town, locally owned, that is trying to find a spot to develop a private recreational, indoor recreational facility. So they have approached Sweetgrass, and so they would be able to develop on that 28 acres if this amendment is approved. If they don't develop it, it could still be developed as a private park. It could potentially be developed as residential. And even if it is developed for some other use, there still is, you know, some balance of public park that may come in the future. But at this time, the city doesn't have any interest in additional parkland above and beyond the 45 acres.
Okay, I think that answered my questions. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will staff please present the report?
Chair, members of the commission, Connor White, Planning and Development Department. Before you is a PUD amendment for Sweetgrass. This is the full PUD for Sweetgrass itself. This map might be a little hard to see, but on the future land use map, the green portion under the hatching, the red hatching on the far west side, that is the park location. So this PUD amendment doesn't change the location, doesn't change the future land use map, doesn't change the zoning within the PUD for that area according to the PUD. It is still labeled as the community park. With the proposed amendment, it does make changes, as the applicant has mentioned, to the acreage that the city would then be maintaining out of that community park location. It does reduce it down to 45 acres. Also, as the applicant mentioned, the PUD amendment does allow for subsequent park dedication to fulfill the remaining amount should the city want to take on additional park land. At this time, the city does not look to take any more than the 45 acres. Again, there's just updated language in here about the dedication, how much park area, who's maintaining it, who's developing it. And then this amendment goes into more detail that would allow a portion of that park area to be developed privately, would be with private recreational uses, as the applicant mentioned. And then there was the added zoning map amendment language as another route for the PUD amendment. This is more restrictive than the UDC, as it does kind of condense it down to needing to be a change up to 25%. Anything over that 25% jumps it into the major PUD amendment and would come back as a larger PUD amendment. Otherwise, anything that's that 25% or lower basically just follows our zoning map amendment regulations that are in the UDC for notice, process, anything that comes forward. This doesn't change anything out of the PUD. The PUD specifically has in it its own kind of zone districts for different areas within the PUD itself. So they have like their own commercial zone or their own high density, residential, low density, medium density. So basically that's what the zone change would be looking at specifically, is just the zone districts within the PUD, not actually amending any area out of the PUD. Staff did review this. Our Parks Department reviewed it. Parks and Greenway Planner reviewed it. And they didn't have any additional comments or questions or anything like that when it came to the PUD amendment. They do support it. And with that, staff does recommend approval of the PUD amendment. I guess I should also note I've had several phone calls about the PUD amendment. I've just explained to people that it's not taking away the park, just reduces what the city is required to basically develop, and allows for private development of the other portion. After kind of going through and explaining to most people, nobody seemed to really have any major issues with the amendment itself. So there was mostly just the concern, as I believe our applicant mentioned, of either the park disappearing or being developed in some other fashion. But once finding out that the park is still going to be there and will be built at some point, I did get asked about timeline. Mr. Palma had more information about the timeline than I've had. I didn't realize that might be moving along a little bit further with the park sooner rather than later. But yeah, with that, again, staff does recommend approval of this PUD amendment. I'm available for any questions.
Uh, Thank you. Questions for staff from the commission? Okay. I'll open this up for public comment. Anybody, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Evening. My name is Tammy Shepherd, 2100 Doran Lane, Cheyenne, Wyoming. And I am in the Sweetgrass neighborhood. And my question is, if they're taking away the land that is proposed for 72 acres for a park, they're going to take away that 30 acres because the city and parks do not want to develop that land. I don't believe that we should put in high density in that extra 30 acres, and that's my concern. I don't want to see us surrounded with more apartments or condominiums or townhouses like we have going up already. And that's the backside of the property, which is a major concern. So I just wanted to find out when that 30 acres would be decided upon, what they would do with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the public wish to speak on this item? In the room, going once, going twice. Is there anybody on Zoom from the public that wishes to speak?
And I should mention for those on Zoom, if you do have any comments, please go ahead and use the raise hand feature.
Any indication of somebody on Zoom?
I do have one.
Okay,
Seth Medina, you should be able to speak.
Yeah,
please
hi.
state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Seth Medina, 2228 Goodnight Trail. My question is more or less of a function of really truly when development is actually going to take place. We'd really like to see some development take place in that property, in the acreage, to the west there of the community itself. So it'd be more of a function of the time frame, for the development itself to take place from the 45 acres, the parcel that would actually be handed over to the city itself. When does the city actually plan to more or less break ground on that land itself? Those would be the questions that I would have. Don't expect you guys to have answers now.
Thank you, sir. And any other folks on Zoom? Anybody else in the room going once, going twice? I'd like to call the agent up to respond to questions as best as possible. This will be the last presentation in public comment. Or we close public comment.
Casey Palma Land Planning Agent for the owner.
Okay. Would you please address questions that were presented as best as you're able, if able?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So in terms of the timeline, I think I did speak a little bit about that. Sweetgrass is as anxious as anybody to see that park develop. There's several hurdles in the way. I talked to some audience members and told them earlier, the gas metering station in the middle of Avenue C is one of them. So we are working to kind of put those pieces in place to facilitate the city's ability to develop that. I have had conversations with Parks and Greenway about moving that forward. I don't have a specific timeline on that, but I think we are all very hopeful that we can move that forward very quickly. I anticipate that a plat will be coming forward to this body within the next 3 months or so. that would at least establish those land ownership boundaries, which would include the gas metering station owned by XL Energy. So I can't give you any more detail to the timeline of development other than that. And then as to Ms. Shepherd's concern, and as staff noted, this leaves all of that 72 to 3 acres in the recreational land use zone. The only allowed uses are things that are allowed in the recreational park zone. And so there cannot be any residential, high density residential townhomes, anything like that, without going through that zone change process that is outlined in here. There's no intent to submit a zone change for that, just to be clear. It sort of came up in this whole process as to, what would happen if somebody wanted to do change a land use like that. But everybody in the neighborhood would get, everybody required to be notified would be notified, as was done with this application. And there was one other thing I thought that had come up. I just wanted to mention that there is currently a provision in the code that's not part of this amendment that does say if that parkland is not developed, it could be converted to a medium density residential use. There's also no intent to do that in the near future, but that provision is in there. So I don't want to mislead anybody, but there's no intention to develop it for anything other than recreational uses.
Okay, thank you. With
Thank
that, public comment is closed. Commission, I think we're looking for a motion to initiate discussion if need be.
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend the governing body approve the Sweetgrass PUD amendment.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Laird and seconded by Commissioner Olson. Do we have any discussion by commission? Discussion? Okay. Amendments, seeing none. Will the chair please call roll?
Megan Connor,
Aye.
Amy Hernandez,
Aye.
Lonnie Olson,
Aye.
Tony Laird,
Yes.
Terrell Hibbins.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, that motion passes.
Thank you. Will staff please read item B into the record?
Item B, PLTA 26-1, special use approvals, creation of the regional entertainment overlay and development standards for off-track betting facilities. Text amendment.
Chair, members of the commission, Charles Bloom, Planning and Development Director. First of all, there is no applicant presentation for this because we are the city initiating this. I'm asking for another postponement to the first meeting in May. We have made significant steps forward on this amendment. We just had a couple of other items that kind of popped out in front of this that prevented it from being finalized for this meeting. I welcome for any questions that you may have regarding this.
Thank you, Director Bloom. And are we looking for another 1 month postponement?
Chair, through you to the commission, yes, I'd be seeking a recommendation to postpone this to the May 4th meeting.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions from other commissioners for staff? Do I need to open it to public comment?
I
I
guess
guess.
so. There's nothing really to discuss.
No, I think,
But-
I believe I'd like, if there's anybody here that was intending to speak to this issue that's in attendance from the public. Public comment open once, going twice, public comments closed. Looking for a motion.
Chair,
Commissioner Olson.
I move to postpone this item to the May 4th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Olson and seconded by Commissioner Hibben. Discussion by staff of the motion. Okay. Will staff please call roll?
Lonnie Olson,
Aye.
Amy Hernandez,
Aye.
Megan Connor,
Aye.
Daryl Hibbins,
Yes.
Tony Laird.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, that motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Staff, please read item C into the record.
Item C, PUDC 26 32 Bison Apartments expedited plat.
Okay, do we have an applicant present? Please come forward, state your name. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, John Sayers, agent for True Grit Land Development. What you have before you is the process of going through what we came to several months or almost a year ago for a conditional use on an apartment complex that is almost at CO at this point for a certificate of occupancy. In the request from the potential buyers, they asked that we go ahead and we plat the individual buildings. We have gone ahead and brought that before you. With staff's recommendation, we have succeeded and managed to comply with all the necessary requirements, and happy to answer any questions should you have any.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant from the commission? Any questions from the commissioners attending via Zoom? Okay. Thank you, I guess. Will staff please read your report into the record?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Morgan Dennis, Planning and Development. This is an expedited plat for 1.88 acres. Acres located north of West College Drive, west Walter Scheid Boulevard, and east of Grand Harmony Boulevard. The site is currently finishing construction for multiple fourplex buildings. The purpose of this plat is to create individual lots for the buildings to be sold. The common lot will be sold as 8 pieces alongside the buildings. Each owner of the buildings will be responsible for maintaining the common lot and parcels to the approved site plan. The current land use map designates this area as mixed use commercial. The zoning of this parcel is CB commercial business. Multi-dwelling buildings are conditional use in the CB zone. This parcel received approval for multi-dwelling buildings from the Board of Adjustments in November of 2024. CB zone, there are no lot minimums for frontage or area, so all the lots proposed are buildable. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat, advancing the final plat to the governing body.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff? Any questions for staff from Zoom? Commissioners on Zoom? I think I've got a question. As presented, is there any provision for enforcement? And maybe this would be for the applicant, but is there any provision for enforcement if what appears to be a common parking lot is going to be sold off as individually attached to the adjacent buildings? In my understanding, that's what's going to happen here. And maintenance, there's no HOA. What are we going to do with trespassing complaints? Is the city comfortable with that?
Mr. Chair, through you to you. So on the final plat, there is a note that says that assigns responsibility of each 8th piece. Some of this can be better answered by the developer. But yeah, there is a note on the plat that assigns a responsibility of maintaining the approved site plan whatever current site plan that is.
Thank you. And I see an applicant that looks like he's willing to come and talk to me a little bit. Talk to us a little bit.
Mr. Chair, through you, John Sayers, agent. In working through how this open space and common space works, tax wise, somebody has to pay the bill. So what has been worked through with city staff is that everybody has a 1/8 interest into the actual lot 9, which is common open space. There will be a maintenance agreement between all 8 individual users so that nothing can happen and be sold off like detention ponds and various other things that we've run into recently. So with that said, there is an arrangement for all that to tie in together. Currently, it is under one family ownership to be subdivided between members of the family, and it will stay in that family trust that way. But that was the way we had to go ahead and prioritize which individual family member received which individual building, with the idea that there is an arrangement for lot 9 as they all have a 1/8 interest and nobody can solely buy lot 9.
Okay, thank you. That's a little different than what I heard from the initial presentation, but thank you for the clarification. Okay, do we have any members of the public here? We've heard from the applicant, we've heard from the city. Any members of the public who wish to speak on this? Going once, going twice. Public comment is now closed. Looking for a motion to discuss.
Chair,
Commissioner Olson.
I move to approve the Bison Apartments preliminary plat, advancing the final plat to the governing body.
Okay, thank you.
I second.
And we have a second by Commissioner Hibben. Do we have any discussion on the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Laird.
So I guess just thinking out loud, this is typical of a lot of the subdivisions we have, right? There's common property or common lots that are owned jointly by all the individual owners of the normal lots. And they're jointly responsible for the maintenance of those lots. And then I guess in this case, the property taxes arrangements have been made to, if they each have a 1/8 interest, though that 1/8 is not geographically defined. Is that our understanding, everybody?
That was my understanding after the follow-up from the applicant. Is that it was more of a 1/8 undivided interest, was my impression.
And Mr. Chair, just one more clarification point, because initially, when I first looked at this, I thought it was just the parking lot that was commonly owned, but I believe it's also a big band of land around the outside of the individual lots and up to the perimeter of the property that maybe staff could.
Mr. Chair, through you, that is correct.
Okay,
So
thank
it's parking lot plus basically anything that the lots, the building, it's everything except for the lots the buildings are on.
Any further discussion, comment from staff, comment from the commission? Don't want to ignore our commissioners that are attending via Zoom. Questions that need clarified? Hearing none. Will staff please call roll?
Darrell Hibbins,
Aye.
Megan Connor,
Aye.
Amy Hernandez,
Aye.
Tony Laird,
Aye.
Lonnie Olson.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, that motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Will staff please read item D into the record?
Item D, PUDC 26-35, Dry Creek Vista Final Plat.
Do we have an applicant or agent for an applicant?
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission, Casey Palma, Palma Land Planning Agent for the owner. What you have before you tonight is a subdivision plat to divide out two existing residences from a larger parcel. You may have seen something about the vacation of the intervening right-of-way on this project. Essentially, the vacation action and this platting action are intended to clarify and clear up a long line of strange title issues and actions by the city and county. So that the current owner owns both of those residences. The intent here is to put each of them on its own lot, leaving a remainder lot in the middle. There's sewer and water in Rock Springs Court or Rock Springs Street. And, for decades, the driveway that currently falls in what used to be Frank Court is utilized as a private driveway. So this plat just follows up on the heels of that vacation action to create a land division and clarify the ownership boundaries. I'd be happy to address any questions you might have.
Commissioners, questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, through you. I just wanted to make sure you're, or the owner's comfortable with this condition that staff is asking us to add about the title commitment from the title company or quiet title resolving or the east-west Frank Court that was vacated.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, through you. I think the condition is somewhat unavoidable. There's been a lot of confusion regarding these rights of way and the chain of title over time. The surveyor is currently researching back in that title track and talking to the title company about verifying how this ownership was broken down. It was originally owned by the county. Dry Creek was conveyed to the city. So there's a lot of issues there, but I guess in short, we accept the condition as kind of a necessary part of this complicated piece of land.
Maybe this is my day job coming back to haunt me, but what happens if the applicant does everything in their power to accomplish the condition and it doesn't happen? The court decides otherwise or something like that.
You're the attorney, not me.
So
I think
maybe
there
we'll save that for staff, but I wondered if that was an issue that had come up.
Yeah, I think that generally all parties involved, going all the way back to Laramie County in 1987, everybody agrees that this is a fairly acceptable representation of what is out there and how it should be interpreted. The reason for the condition, and I'll let staff speak more specifically to it, but is that there's several different interpretations of that center line of Frank Court and who owned what and when. And so it just requires some deeper research. So I don't think that, I think I can confidently say that my client would be amenable to a postponement if you thought that that was a better path forward than putting the condition on today. There is no imminent development action. This is merely a housekeeping issue in terms of the record. So I think we do have some time between now and the council approval to see where, whether an issue comes up. So for now, I think it's generally acceptable to recommend approval of the plat as presented with the condition. If the condition unearths something more complicated, the plat would either not be able to be recorded or would need to be held until, that issue is sorted out. So it's your prerogative how you'd like to proceed.
Thank you. I just want to get some feedback before we hear from the staff.
Sure.
Any other questions for the applicant? Will staff please read your report into the record?
Chair and members of the Commission, Connor White, Planning and Development Department. The plat before you is for 3.17 acres of land that is east of North College Drive and north of and adjacent to Rock Spring Street. This is a final plat. If you remember, we've had two items of the same project come before you. We've had the preliminary plat that came first, that was submitted as an expedited plat, but due to all of the issues that were kind of coming up with vacating Frank Court, the ownership issues, we did basically change that to a preliminary plat and only allow that to come before you as preliminary. One of the conditions on the preliminary plat was that the applicant submit a vacation map to the city and the city would initiate the vacation. That street vacation is currently on third reading in front of council. Was at Public Service Committee today, does have a recommendation of approval going into next Monday's council meeting. So I do believe that that vacation will be approved and the street will be vacated in its entirety. So that condition that was placed on the preliminary plat has been fulfilled. The one condition, which is why there's, I guess I'll jump back a little bit. The property is on the future land use map as urban residential. It is proposed with 3 lots for residential. It is zone medium density residential within the city. The northernmost lot does have a residence, and then that southeast lot has a residence, and then the larger lot in the middle would be a vacant lot for future development. Going back to that condition that was brought up, one of the outstanding conditions that we had on the preliminary plat that staff felt wasn't fully fulfilled was the clarification and verifying the ownership of basically the land that was vacated for the east-west portion of Frank Court. Reviewing various plats, trying to figure out when it was vacated, how it was vacated, who the land was supposed to go to. There's nothing that clearly defines that. So that's why staff put that condition on there that something be provided by either a title company or the applicant or the owner go through quiet title and acquire the land in full in name, so that we know who that owner is, and have that for this plat. Staff is not opposed to the plat moving forward. That's why we have the condition. That's why we didn't recommend postponement or anything. We would also like to see this area cleaned up and get this taken care of. We just want to make sure that everything is taken care of to the point where we know who owns the land, whose name is on it, making sure that's all clear and done with. Because again, as even the applicant mentioned, this whole area has been very difficult to tell who's owned what, when it was vacated, how it was vacated, and all of that. So, but otherwise, with the final plat, we also did want necessary easements to be provided, and then making minor technical corrections. A lot of those easements are being taken care of with the vacation. So there is an easement on well, I guess on this case for this plat, the western property line that does provide access to the northernmost lot. There is a BOPU easement that is being provided as well for the water and sewer stub at the bottom of Frank Court with the vacation as well. And then you have your utility easements that are provided with the plat. So staff does believe that almost all of the conditions placed on the preliminary have been satisfied. Again, just noting that the clarification and ownership, staff does not believe that has been fully satisfied, which is why the condition with staff's recommendation of approval has been placed on this final plat. And due to meeting all of the review criteria with the condition as noted up on the screen, staff does recommend approval of this final plat. And I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff from the commission? Any questions for staff from our commissioners who are here via Zoom?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Hernandez.
So I work for a title company, so I don't know if this is a conflict of if I need to recuse myself from this. I'm not sure what title company they may be going through. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Commissioner Hernandez, do you have any comments based on your knowledge in the title industry that would help illuminate
Um,
this for the remainder of the commission?
I mean, I don't have any comment right now. I wasn't really aware of the project, so um, I wouldn't be right now.
Yeah, we don't lose a quorum if you choose to recuse yourself. Would like your insight though. I've got a question for staff on this. It was mentioned that the vacation of the road, Frank Court, is still pending before city. That it was before the Public Services Committee. Was there any comment, any discussion that can be reported back that could help us?
Mr. Chair, through you, fortunately, I missed the discussion because I was stuck on the phone about our first item that was on this agenda. But I did get an email from Director Bloom and was also made aware by Morgan that some of the discussion that was had was just about making sure that the residences that are adjacent to the Frank Court vacation can still access their property. The answer to that is yes. Again, the property on this plat that's all the way to the north has the easement that runs along on this plat, which would be the east side of Frank Court, but the west side of the plat. And the southwest property that's at the intersection of Frank Court and Rock Spring Street, they will own half the street. So it's basically a driveway for them already. It's now becoming their land and an actual driveway for them. But my understanding, that's the only kind of discussion that was had, is just questions about access for those properties that are along Frank Court currently. Other than that, there hasn't really been any major discussions on the vacation itself. And there is the recommendation of approval for next Monday.
Okay, and kind of related to that, if we recommend approval of this plat in its current form, and for some reason the vacation of Frank Court fails on third reading, can this plat proceed, or are we about a month ahead
So,
of
Mr.
the
Chair,
game?
Mr. Chair, through you. So if this plat was basically to be recommended for approval and it goes to be introduced next Monday, but next Monday the vacation fails, which I would like to state highly unlikely at this point with just how council's been voting on it. But say it does, then at that point, staff would have to recommend at council, we would end up changing our recommendation and recommending denial due to the failure of the vacation. Because now this plat is incorporating land that wasn't vacated, and they're trying to, it would basically, you'd be vacating the street with this plat, which you're only vacating half the street, which the city wouldn't support. So it would be fine if planning commission still recommended approval tonight. And then if something happened next Monday, staff would basically just turn around and have to be at council recommending denial, stating why, due to the failure of the vacation.
And then a follow up to that, as part of the discussion, sorry to monopolize discussion here. Would there be an alternative, and maybe this would be better directed to applicant, would there be a better alternative or some sort of an alternative plat that could meet the applicant's needs? Or would they have to start all over? Start the process all over from, application fee onward to try to bring forward a plat that met their needs if the vacation fails?
Mr. Chair, through you, they could either most likely they could postpone it. And then they could work on modifications that remove the street vacation area. Again, there's still the preliminary plat that is approved. So as long as a final plat is similar to that preliminary plat, that can still move forward. Staff can usually find a way if something like that came up. Again, I think it's at this point highly unlikely that vacation is not going to pass. I guess there's always but I guess there's always a way that it could just have 6 no votes, but I think with the recommendation coming out of Public Service Committee with a recommendation of approval, even being a fully unanimously approved on second reading, no discussion at council on second reading, I should add as well. I just don't foresee the vacation not going, basically being approved and moving forward.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the commission?
Mr. Chair, through you. I'm just thinking out loud, maybe this is better discussion when we're ready for a motion, but I feel like maybe it would be more proper for the planning commission's recommendation to the governing body to mention that our recommendation is contingent upon their vacation at Frank Quarter, that approval of that item that's already underway, rather than us just approving it as is and relying on staff to hold it up in the governing body later.
Is there a question for staff in there?
I guess, staff, what do you feel about that? I guess that would be the question, yeah, because Connor was the one that mentioned that the staff would probably change their recommendation to the governing body to not approve it if eventually the Frank Court vacation fails. So I guess the question to you is, would it be more appropriate for the planning commission to make that part of the motion forwarding to the governing body?
Mr. Chair, through you to Commissioner Laird. Being you are the commission, you can add that into your motion if you would like, if you believe that's something you believe is should be in the motion, that it basically you recommend approval of the final plat with staff's recommended condition. I'd have to think more about how to word it, but you could find a way to add something in there, if you can think of it, of just noting that as long as the vacation is approved. So, but again, the vacation is going into third reading on Monday. So this plat won't even be discussed until after the vacation would technically be approved. So I guess in short, it is, you can do it.
Any other questions from the commission? I'll now open this up for public comment. Are there any members from the public that are here to speak to this? Public comment going once, going twice. Public comment is now closed. I don't think we've got any open questions for the applicant. I think I'm looking for a motion. And we can amend a motion as need be. Looking for a motion on this.
Mr. Chair. I move to recommend the governing body approve the Dry Creek Vista final plat with staff recommended conditions.
Been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded by Commissioner Olson. Further discussion by staff, comment by, I'm sorry, staff, by the commission. Anybody on Zoom?
Chair, I'm curious just regarding what Commissioner Laird said, and if we want to add that or not. I was trying to brainstorm some language in my head, and I'm kind of having a hard time adding like a contingent on the approval of the vacation, because it's
Mr. Chair, let me ask the commission, would it be more helpful if I just, in my memo that I send to council, add a statement in there that this is planning commission's recommendation as long as basically Frank Court, the vacation is approved? Would that suffice for commission? And then I have it in the memo, and then I bring it up in my basically presentation. Well, I don't know if I need to bring it up at the presentation if it's approved next Monday, but I can bring it up that this was planning commission's recommendation as long as the vacation was approved. And if the vacation's approved, they do recommend approval.
Commissioners? The
Mr.
condition in there is the other commissioner's idea. I have no thoughts one way or the other.
I was, I guess as I thought about that before, I was kind of thinking out loud and wondering which is the more appropriate way to go? But having struggled again, like Commissioner Olson, with the difficulty of how to put that in language, because usually when we talk about conditions, we're talking about conditions to be imposed on the applicant with the approval of the plat, which is not the case here. And I'm completely confident that staff will convey to the governing body that this is tied to the vacation of Frank Court. And as they say, that will probably be a done deal. Maybe just before this ever comes up to council, before they ever even discuss it. So I do not wish to attempt to amend it myself, even though I was the one that brought it up.
Commissioners, and I see the applicant, and I believe the applicant previously indicated that postponement was not a problem. I don't know if we need a postponement, but.
And if the chair wants to, Charles does have his hand raised, so let's see. Chair, through you, Director Bloom does have his hand raised, so I'll let him. Maybe he's got something for the commission on this.
For the edification of the commission, we'll recognize Director Bloom.
And chair through to members of the commission, perhaps language could be added to staff recommendation as item B, which follows A, which could be the vacation of rights of way within the plat boundaries be approved prior to city signatures on the plat. Or prior to the city, prior to city signatures on the being affixed to the plat. What that accomplishes is that if the vacation action does not occur, then the city planning director, myself, and the mayor will not be able to sign the approved plat.
That satisfy the commission? I'm curious if this would be acceptable to the applicant, because we're messing with the applicant's project here. Is there a desire to offer an amendment conforming to Director Bloom's suggestion, or do we want to proceed as is or something else?
Chair, I would move to amend it with what Director Bloom referenced. I don't have it word for word, but it would be more or less adding a second condition to the final plat, stating that city signatures cannot be affixed to it without the vacation of Frank Court.
I'll take that as a motion. Is there a second? Are there any thoughts from the commissioners on Zoom?
And
I see no second. I think
I'll second. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to amend the original motion to include a second conditioning affixation of fixing city signatures to the plat upon prior vacation of Frank Court.
And
Any
Chair,
discussion there?
I just would want to make sure that Commissioner Laird's all right with that amendment to his original motion.
And Mr. Chair, I am.
Okay, with that, any comment?
Mr. Chair, I would note that I do have the exact language from Director Bloom, so I will make sure I have that as the
Okay.
condition.
Okay. Any comment on Zoom? Hearing none, will staff please call roll on the amendment to the motion?
All right. Amy Hernandez,
Aye.
Tony Laird,
Aye.
Megan Connor,
Aye.
Daryl Hibbins,
Aye.
Lonnie Olson.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the amendment to the motion passes, so we're back on the main motion to approve
As amended.
as amended.
Okay. Is there any further discussion regarding the main motion to approve as amended? Anything on Zoom? Hearing none, will staff please call roll?
Tony Laird,
Aye.
Megan Connor,
Aye.
Daryl Hibbins,
Aye.
Amy Hernandez,
Aye.
Lonnie Olson.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion to approve the final plat passes.
Okay, thank you. Before we proceed, do we want to handle E, F, and G together? Or do we want to handle these individually?
Mr. Chair, through you. So I think my recommendation would be E be handled separately as it's basically just the assigned zoning, but F and G do go together, and F and G actually have the applicant on those, but item E is just staff as the applicant because it's the assigned zoning portion of the annexation.
Okay, thank you. Will staff please read item E into the record?
Item E, PUDC 26 37, Cox Land assigned zoning.
Will staff please read the report as applicant?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, Connor White, Planning and Development Department. The item before you is an assigned zoning. So you've seen these quite a bit. They all come with our annexations. This piece of property is out west of town. It is west of Round Top and adjacent to Happy Jack Road. This is an owner petitioned annexation. The city does have land that we've kind of hopped on and tied into the annexation. It's for the city's water treatment plant that's out there on Happy Jack. But this is the land that is proposed to be annexed. So it is everything that is just in the shaded red area. So with this assigned zoning, this is for, well, there's the two parcels. So you have the owner initiated, owner petitioned, which is the larger parcel on the north side of Happy Jack, and then the city owned land that is on the south side. So as always with the assigned zoning, that is the only discussion that we're having here tonight at Planning Commission. We do not discuss the annexation. That happens at council. This is just on the assigned zoning aspect of this project. Through staff's review, the larger parcel, which is either referred to as the Cox Ranch land parcel or Cox land parcel, that parcel that would be proposed for the assigned zoning is roughly 1,900 and, wow, I added way too many numbers in my staff report. 1,900 and I believe 97.76. I think I added an extra 7 acres. And then I don't remember exactly how much the city owned one is, but looking at these parcels, the Cox Ranch lands is mostly just vacant ranch land. So the surrounding zoning out there, it's all county LU. Land around it is either vacant or has other ranch lands on it and is used as ag land. So the closest city zone, I believe, is actually just LI across Happy Jack down at the very southwest or southeast corner. So through staff's analysis, staff is recommending that that parcel, so the Cox Ranch land parcel, be zoned AG as the assigned zoning. Which as the chair mentioned, the next two items are going along with this project as well, and are the applicant's requested zone change and future land use map amendment for the actual applicant parcel. The city-owned parcels with this annexation, because the water treatment plant is right there and a portion of it does become contiguous with the annexation of that land. I know the little square isn't contiguous. It is actually separated by other county land, but because it is city-owned, the city can still annex it. So we did, BOPU did want to annex the land out here. So we did ask if we could bring this in with this annexation. Looking at the city's own parcel, it's zoned LU in the county. Both city zones, you'd have the AG, LI, or BP zoning. But being this is city-owned, the city, we are proposing that the assigned zoning just be P public for that land. So with the two parcels being annexed, the larger the parcels, staff would recommend AG. For the city-owned parcel, we would recommend P public zoning. And due to meeting the review criteria, staff does recommend approval of the assigned zoning, and I am available for any questions.
Any questions from the commission for staff?
And Mr. Chair, through you, I was also confused about the acre number there too, but I think you have one extra 9. I think the first 9 doesn't belong. I think in reality, it's just less than 1,200 acres. Based on
through you, that could be correct, but yeah, I just noticed that as I was going through. But yeah, it is over 1,000 acres. It is under the 1,200, because I know when you add the city's parcel, I know for my annexation staff report, it's over 1,200 acres. That'd be coming in with the full annexation.
So to clarify, we're talking about 2 square miles, not over 3 square miles.
I believe so.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I did have one more substantive question about the so looking forward to the other, I guess the next item where we talk about the urban service boundary. That has no bearing on this. This could still be rezoned to the zoning districts you're asking for, even before we've taken action on changing the urban service boundary. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, through you, yes, that is correct. So with an annexation, because this is the parcel boundary, we do have to give it a city zone when it's annexed, regardless of the urban service boundary. It just happens that the applicant is requesting a different zone district. So with that, we also needed a future land use map amendment. So we also amended the urban service boundary at the same time for basically that parcel. But with an annexation, one of the annexation criteria does look at the urban service boundary, which I will be noting to council that until the future land use map goes through the process, about 70% of the parcel is within the urban service boundary, about 30%, I believe, is outside of it. But the ag zoning, say the next 2 items don't go through, the ag zoning would still cover the parcel and would still be fine for the area because it's the assigned zoning portion. It's basically giving the property kind of what the zoning is currently and just allowing it to be within city limits.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who are here that wish to speak to this item? Would you please read your name and address for the record?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Michael White, Laramie County, 6605 Van Buren Avenue. In respect to Connor's comments, he stated that there's 2 parcels and 2 owners. And maybe this is common practice for the Planning Commission, but to me, if it's 2 separate properties, there should be for lack of any other words, two separate agendas and two separate applicants. One, of course, is the Cox Ranch. The other one is the city of Cheyenne. Well, the city of Cheyenne is the public. And in addition to that, I know Connor made the point about annexation, but to me, it's hard for the planning commission to make a reasonable recommendation on a vote when a week from tonight, there's a public hearing on this specific project. So my feeling is the planning commission should postpone this and allow both applicants separately. I guess what we're doing is piggybacking this on another question I would have. Did the Board of Public Utilities board approve? Were they the ones initiating the annexation? And if, I mean, the zone change, and if they did they go through their board and approve that? And the last comment I'd like to make, because I don't know how else to say it, a zoning change also, you have to have services out there. Closest service for fire protection is the county fire station. So I don't know if we're going to get into a turf war again on who's going to acknowledge that. And that's probably something that maybe you guys don't look at, but thank you for your time and appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who are here to speak on this item? You get your name and address for the record, please.
Chairman, Planning Commission members, Brad Evans, AVI, 1103 Old Town Lane. Just wanted to point out that this is the same process we've done on every annexation through the city for the last 20 years, where the annexation and the zone change go together simultaneously. So the annexation and the zone change will line up when we get in front of the city council meeting. Their annexation decision and ours will just line up one right after the other. So just wanted to make sure that the planning commission understood we're not doing this any differently from a standpoint of any annexation we've taken through the process in the last 25 years that I've been doing work in Laramie County in the city of Cheyenne. The process of how this came forward is the Cox Ranch they talked to the Board of Public Utilities about servicing the project. They said yes, they could serve it. The city of Cheyenne then said, if we're going to serve it, you need to annex and bring it into the city of Cheyenne. Once we got into that process, then the board asked if, because we were already turning in maps, we're going to be out in the area surveying, asked if they could be included with their land. And again, as Connor pointed out, the Board of Public Utilities could have annexed their two parcels at any time. Their two parcels are owned by the city. The state statutes are very clear that you can annex, a city can annex their own property. So the addition of them on this map was just because we were already out there in the field and collecting the data. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on this, even though this is the assigned zoning. So we're really here for the next two.
Thank you. And that is correct. This is the assigned zoning. So we're not to the heavy lifting yet. Are there any other members of the public who are here to wish to comment on this item? Are there any members of the public on Zoom who wish to comment?
Mr. Chair, there are no members of the public on Zoom any longer.
Okay. Going once, going twice. Public comment is now closed. And the chair is looking for a motion.
Chair,
Commissioner Olson.
I move to recommend the governing body approve the assigned zoning for land west of Round Top Road and adjacent to Happy Jack Road to AG Agricultural and P Public as shown in the attached zone change map, noting that the project meets the review criteria for approval.
Okay, thank
I
you.
approve. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I second it.
And I've got a motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Hibbins. And just to note for the general public, what we are looking at here is if the city votes to annex some or all of this land, what will be the applicable zoning at the time of annexation? Okay, are there any discussion by the commission? Questions, comments from commissioners on Zoom? Hearing none, will staff please call roll?
Daryl Hibbins,
Aye.
Lonnie Olson,
Aye.
Tony Laird,
Aye.
Amy Hernandez,
Aye.
Megan Connor.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, that motion passes.
Thank you. Will staff please read the next? Are we going to handle the two items together, or do we want to handle them individually?
Mr. Chair, if it's the commission's preference, if you would like basically the applicant and staff to discuss both these items together, we can. They will have to have two separate motions. So we will have to do the motion separately, but we could have the discussion together. They do go together. The zone change is contingent on the future land use map amendment. So I'm more than happy to discuss them together. I'm sure our applicant is also fine with discussing both together because it might just make it easier to discuss both points at the same time. So if that is the planning commission's preference, I'm more than happy to read both items into the record and we can discuss them together.
And does the applicant have essentially one presentation or two? Okay, because I'm inclined to do them separately, but let's read. Will staff please read items F and G into the record?
Item F, PUDC-26-48, Cox Land Future Land Use Map Amendment. And then item G is PUDC-26-38, Cox Land Zoning Map Amendment.
Okay, thank you. We have an applicant.
Chairman, Planning Commission members, Brad Evans, AVI agent for the owner, Cox Ranches, and the applicants, Tom Glissmeyer and Jack O'Neill. Before you is a land use amendment and a zone change for the development of a business park in this area. As you know, recently we just went through the process of the city adopting a business park zoning that is designated for areas like this. And one of the reasons why we went through the process of setting up sizes for the business park, if you remember, it has to be 320 acres minimum, and those kind of things. Against the developer and owner met with staff on making sure that this could be served with sewer and water. We've started the design of those services in this area as well. With the fact that the BOPU said that they could serve this area. If you look at the current land use amendment, it does talk about residential areas and expansion, and that is very similar to what was in the areas where we did project equality to the south of this. As the business park has grown to the west, it has just been continually expanded the land use amendment to the west, and it is most of it is inside the urban service boundary. Again, looking for a BP zoning after the land use amendment has been moved forward. Happy to answer any questions on either one with the commission.
Are there any questions for the applicant from the commission? Are there any questions for the applicant from the commissioners who are with us via Zoom? Hearing none, will staff please read its report?
Chair, members of the commission, Connor White, Planning and Development Department. The item before you is a future land use map amendment. This amendment looks at also extending the urban service boundary. This is for the same project as our last item, so it is west of Round Top Road and adjacent to Happy Jack Road. Again, it's the highlighted area. This does not include the city-owned land, so this is just the applicant's request for both these items. So it is just the Cox Ranch lands. But this future land use map amendment, it would look at extending the urban service boundary. As you can kind of see, even on the future land use map, if I go to the applicant's map, you can see a little bit better, but that dashed pink line on the left map, that is the urban service boundary. It is just a straight line currently, doesn't follow any of the parcel boundaries. So basically, the land outside of that also doesn't have a future land use attached to it at this time. So with this amendment, it would extend the urban service boundary to basically just match the parcel line of the parcel itself. And then it would also be looking at giving the land that doesn't have a future land use the mixed use employment designation, and also changing the urban transition residential portion to mixed use employment. So with the future land use map amendment, this does coincide with the second item, which is the applicant requesting the business park zone district. With the BP zone, or I guess with the future land use amendment to mixed use employment, it would accommodate the zone change, which is the second item, to business park. As I mentioned, part of the property is outside the urban service boundary and has no future land use designation. With our future land use map, there are cases where you can see it where the future land use is not just a square box around Cheyenne, it does follow parcel boundaries, especially on the east side of Cheyenne. So this isn't uncommon to extend the urban service boundary to follow parcel boundaries rather than just be a straight line. A portion of the property is currently urban transition residential. The urban transition residential category, along with the rural residential category, provides a general transition from the urbanized areas of Cheyenne, of the Cheyenne area, to the rural areas on the periphery. It does include existing houses and neighborhoods, as well as some planned and recent new growth areas. The mixed use employment designation, we do look at that as being kind of more on the kind of exterior of the community, kind of further out. Usually with mixed use employment, it is a land use that would be used for kind of larger pieces of land like this if they are looking to develop with larger business park type developments. In this area, there is mixed use employment to the south. All to the south is basically, well, portion of it to the southwest, I would say, is or southeast is North Range Business Park. There is land outside of North Range Business Park that does have the same designation. It is not currently annexed or within city limits, but is also on the future land use map as potentially in the future developing with some sort of mixed use employment. To the north, you do have agricultural rural and no designation. The south, you also have some that is no designation. To the east is urban transition residential. And then to the west, that's all outside the urban service boundary and has no designation. Through staff's review, we did find that, or we do believe that the mixed use employment does fit the property out here. Some of the policies that it does meet would be flexibility to response to market demand, recruit new employers, and location for heavy industrial use. Specifically with that last policy, it does talk about having kind of these larger kind of industrial uses be on the exterior, and then also being able to have kind of that direct distribution, and being able to get to the various major thoroughfares. So with that, staff does recommend approval of the future land use map amendment for this property. Going on to the zone change itself, being the same property. Again, staff recommended approval for that assigned zoning of AG. The applicant is requesting the BP zone. Similar points, this is near a business park. It is almost an extension of a business park. Our business park definition did require 320 acres, basically to be zone BP. This property can do that on its own, even if it wasn't adjacent to the business park. At this time, staff hasn't been presented any final plans for how the property would develop. It can develop as multiple parcels. It could develop as one parcel. It, again, could be a similar business park to what North Range is out there already. But it does have the acreage to basically be recommended for approval for business park zone. Without the future land use map amendment, staff wouldn't be recommending approval of the BP zone. Out there, it is the urban transition, as I had mentioned. But with going to the mixed use employment, one of the zone districts that mixed use employment zone would consider would be that BP zone, as the BP zone is a mix of our LI, HI, and CB zone districts. So it does allow for commercial uses. It allows for light industrial, a little bit of heavy industrial. Again, this is on the exterior of basically the city boundaries. So it's on the edge, which that's also something else the BP zone district looked at, was being those larger parcels being kind of the exterior of the community. So again, staff would recommend approval of the zoning map amendment as well as the future land use map amendment. And with that, I am available for any questions.
Thank you.
Chair.
Right. Commissioner Olson.
I got a couple of questions for staff, and this is backing up to the future land use map amendment. The first one was, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the future land use map amendment also have to go through the county commissioners as well?
Mr. Chair, through you. So with the future, confused, kind of. So it does basically future land use map amendments do have to go to county commissioners. In this case, we're sending these to county commissioners as comment only. The reason for that is we will basically, after tonight, the future land use map amendment will have a delayed submittal to council. So future land use map amendments go as resolutions. Basically, they only have to go through first reading, committee, second reading is their decision. Annexation, assigned zoning, zoning map amendment all have 3 readings and take a longer time. So by us delaying this submittal to council, everything will line up and be approved the same night. And by being approved the same night, it will basically the future land use map amendment will also be pulled off of consent and will have to be considered in a different order on the agenda. But that will allow it to be considered after the land is annexed. By doing that, it does not go to county commissioners for also their approval. It just goes for comment, because any land that is within city limits just goes to county commissioners for comment. Anything that is in the county would go through both jurisdictions. So we've done this before. It's a lot of timing and also kind of having to work with the clerk's office to get everything lined up on the final agenda. But it would not require the basically concurrence of the county commissioners. It just goes to them for comment, which it is going to county. Both future land use map amendments, I should note, that are on tonight's agenda go to county commissioners tomorrow. So that way we have comments just in case they have comments, we have those for council.
And Chair, I have one more or a different area, but still pertaining to the future land use map amendment. And that's about the urban service area. I know previously it was just the north-south line, which kind of seems pretty simple, but I'm just curious if there was any sort of like a serviceability analysis of how far that could be extended. I know you can pump water up, but at some point it's going to cost too much to pump it up. So I'm just curious if staff considered doing that along the whole area, just since you're opening up this can of worms, or if there's a reason that it wasn't considered.
Mr. Chair, through you, and maybe the end will answer this as well, but staff did not consider extending it more in this area. We were mostly just looking at the applicants requesting this area be changed. And because you're looking at a parcel that was half inside the urban service bound, or more than half, but there was a portion that was outside of it, and also requesting a future land use designation, we were just looking at specifically their parcel. Now, if another parcel did want to come in and do the same thing, maybe there would be more analysis. A lot of it is going to also hinge on what does the OPU think. They haven't had a lot of comments on any of these applications. As the applicant mentioned, they've had many discussions on what they can service on this property, how they can service it. It sounds like they're in design and they'll be working with the OPU. So it sounds like it is serviceable to a point. I don't know what point that is to, but according to the applicant and BOPU, they can service it. So no, we only looked at this parcel because that's what was being requested. Staff hasn't done a full-blown analysis of our urban service boundary. We are working on getting the RFP out still for the full Plan Cheyenne update. So maybe that might be something that gets looked at that point. But as for just this project, we just looked at this particular parcel.
I've got a question for staff as we're pondering. And I'm like Commissioner Olson. I'm thinking of just the future land use map amendment. I know we're expanding it kind of piecemeal here. You just mentioned that the RFP for a complete update is out, and I would assume that complete update would address not only this, but other similarly situated, similarly elevated land that's outside our urban service boundary that would be at the same elevation, same level of sewerability, and it would come in. And there's a kind of the adjacent land that I'm really concerned about that lies immediately to the east of this is marked yellow, but my eyes aren't good enough to read what the key says that is.
It's urban transition residential.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to see that, but as we're talking about amending our map here, I've got the same concern that I had when the project, I believe it was Cosmo, came in, and we amended our future land use map to convert several square miles worth of future residential to what became a business park. And I'm assuming this is going to eventually be a data center too. And And now we're looking at trying to bring almost a collar of business parks around to the edge of Cheyenne to the west, kind of form a boundary there. I'm concerned about this type of an amendment. It just kind of the cumulative effects of some of these amendments that we're looking at, and what's going to be the plan if anything that's sewerable we build out as business parks when we've got a housing shortage in the community. And I know we've got one coming up that there's some pushback to an amendment that would cut down on available housing. But I think part of what we're dealing with here is amending the future land use map to accommodate this. And I'm concerned about the cumulative effect. Was there any discussion, or does staff have something to soothe my concerns about this in light of what we've done in the past and what we're looking at doing in the future for future land use and residential accommodation?
So, Mr. Chair, staff did look, again, like you mentioned, and I know of more future land use map amendments that'll be coming forward. So staff has had to look at areas and determine how those could still move forward and develop in certain ways. Is residential still something that we foresee out at this location? One of the things I was just actually going back to my staff report is strict adherence to the plan. As I noted in the staff report, that while the land could be developed with residential, it is on the edge of the community where the high level of services typically expected with urban residential development could be challenging to expand out here. Alternatively, the area could develop with large acreage ranchette style development in the county. However, such development is not optimal for areas within the urban service boundary. So we had to take a look at areas like this where this is the edge of our urban service boundary, as opposed to some of the other future land use map amendments where they're not on the very edge of our urban service boundary, and determine what would be the most optimal for the edge of the community at this point. And again, it goes back to, if we expect this to develop with residential, is it going to be ranchettes? Is it going to be urban style? But then if it's urban style, you are looking at a lot more challenging development for this area. And I think that's how we've kind of been looking at more of these future land use map amendments, is their location, what is surrounding it. Do we believe that area is going to continue to develop with residential? And what impacts that would have?
It's kind of a follow-up. Looking at what we've got immediately to the east, we've got the residential area, and then there's what looks to be like it used to be part of the same ranch before there apparently was some sort of an ownership split. Did we get any kind of a comment specifically from the landowner immediately to the east of this regarding this action?
Mr. Chair, through you, the landowner directly to the east is the same landowner. So, and I might be able to show it on a, yeah. So the parcel that is directly east, the larger portion that is not kind of the subdivision, is the exact same landowner. So it is also the Cox family. And then you get to the subdivision, and I'll let the applicant maybe address it a little bit more, but then you get to the subdivision, which I have had comments from the subdivision, but it was mostly around that subdivision thinking the city's annexing them.
Okay, and just for a point of clarification, if it's the same, according to the assessor's website, there's two different landowners. They're both Cox's, but I wanted to get some clarification.
I can let the
Yes.
applicant speak to that.
Before we get to the applicant, are there any more questions for staff from the commission? Commissioner Laird?
Mr. Chair, through you, I have a couple maybe technical semantic questions. The first is just a process thing. I'm looking at the recommended motion and it reads move to approve the resolution amending. Now, this commission's not actually approving a resolution, right? The resolution is one that will be approved by the governing body. So it seems to me like it should read like our normal motion where we recommend to the governing body.
So, Mr. Chair, in this case, I believe this is kind of similar to a preliminary plat where you actually approve it and then council either affirms the approval or, I mean, if you recommend, or I guess if you deny it, they can still approve it. It changes some of the language in our resolution itself. But I believe in this case, in the way that it is written within Plan Cheyenne, the Planning Commission does actually approve.
So it's not the final approval, but it's one of several.
Correct. And that's where I think it goes to if this had to go to county commissioners, there would have to be multiple different approvals that it would go through. But in this case, you are actually approving, and then council would be the final approval. But that is my understanding. I did have Seth look at my staff report, so I believe both staff reports are written the same way. But we did look at the language and had to kind of figure that out on how that works with the two items we have on the agenda with those going to council. But it is, Planning Commission is moving to approve.
Okay, so the other really picky technical question, if you go to like the last page of the land use report, that item and what I'm talking about in particular is the urban service boundary and how it's depicted on that picture. So you see the kind of before picture on the left, it doesn't quite coincide with the edge of that planning boundary, which seems odd because when I looked at the GIS map online, it looks like it does coincide. And then in the proposed, they did make the proposed urban service boundary coincide with the jogs on that parcel, except for the very northern piece of it where it is inset a little bit. And I didn't know if that was deliberate or just kind of a drafting thing. I guess that's the question is what's going on with that urban service boundary, especially in the proposed part?
Mr. Chair, through you, I'll let the applicant maybe answer the mapping portion. But my understanding is that we would have the urban service boundary basically run along the line of where the future land use map ends.
If I may, so to clarify, do we think that the urban service boundary is depicted as intended to lie at the parcel boundary, even though it looks like it's not along that? I think that's what's being asked.
Mr. Chairman, I guess Brad Emmons, I'm not quite following exactly what.
Okay, looking at this reminds me of the state of Texas, the kind of picture of it with the panhandle at the top.
Yeah.
So if we think about the little panhandle piece at the very top, why is the urban service boundary jogged in a little bit? It isn't right along the edge of that purple, but it's in a little ways. Whereas the rest of that boundary, it follows it exactly.
Well, Mr. Chairman, through you, I guess it would probably need to just a little bit to the west at the top in the purple area. But these are just exhibit map. I mean, these aren't survey level maps, and as we go through, so that can be updated if the commission requests it on the top end of there.
Mr. Chair, that's fine. That's
Yeah,
kind of what I thought. I didn't know if there was some subtle thing I was missing and not understanding, but
yeah.
that's fine if it's just a matter of the drafting isn't quite precise.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go back to Lonnie had a question and you had a question. So if
Any
you're
more
okay with
questions for staff?
Chair, I might have one more, and it's gonna,
Okay, and then we'll call you back to address.
and this is gonna be kind of piggybacking off of the chair's question, and it's just a more of a philosophical question about where the planning office sees how like residential housing growth in our community. As the chair was kind of mentioning, we are getting constricted. Our northern boundaries are all ranchettes, which are very hard to redevelop into more dense housing. The east is kind of showing those trends as well. And then we're kind of looping ourselves around. So I'm just curious, where does staff foresee it? I know that we had sweetgrass and there's a little blip there that we can maybe get out, but it seems to be getting more and more condensed down. And it's just, we have, I think 8+ studies that are saying that we're in a housing crunch, and with all this development of these large campuses, that's also going to be more people needing a place to stay. And we have the Sentinel project. So just more philosophical, not just because it's.
Mr. Chair, through you, to Commissioner Olson, I will say there has been, especially in the past couple of months, a lot of discussions in our office about all of this, about where we see housing going, how is the city going to expand, and things of that nature. Just again, because as you mentioned, with all the development going on, especially the large data centers, we've even had to start looking at putting a map together to see where all these proposed data centers are going to go to really see how that is constricting. But again, I think part of what we were looking at with this one is it does come down to, do we foresee kind of urban development within the urban service boundary at this extent, to the edge of what our urban service boundary is? Whereas we do have other locations that are more kind of closer to where we currently have urban development that we would hope would continue to develop with residential, rather than have it be out this far on the extreme edge. So I think that's kind of where staff has been going with these. Is this, again, I think I've said it multiple times, this goes back to, this is on the edge of our urban service boundary. It's at the very edge of where we believe is serviceable. And already with this one, we are extending the urban service boundary a little bit to accommodate the parcel. But right now, this is the extent of that urban service boundary and is on the edge. So we were looking at this one and believe that it would be fine for this area to go to mixed use employment, rather than stay with that urban transition.
One last question, then we'll get here. Is there any comment? Does the Air Force Base care that we're doing things to the west of them and encircling it? Did we hear any feedback, any comment? Was the Air Force Base even part of the notification of this process?
Mr. Chair, through you, I can say that no, the Air Force Base was not part of the notification process. Even that neighborhood that's to the east wasn't part of the notification process. Our notification process is 300 feet from the property. 300 feet gets you slightly into, again, what I would say is the same property owner, but I'll let the applicant explain the property ownerships there. So no, the Air Force Base hasn't made comment. My recent memory, and Director Bloom can correct me if I'm wrong, there's still discussions going on with the Air Force Base about annexation of the base. I don't know where that is in the process. There's been discussions, I think, for many, many years of annexing the base. But I believe that's all usually tied up with the federal government. So no, they have not had any comment on this. They haven't made comment. I don't know if they're even aware of it. I don't honestly know if they'll really care if they're being encircled. Because again, when it comes to the city zoning regulations or any zoning regulations, they don't apply to the base. Even if it was annexed, it turns into basically they get our military zone district and we wouldn't have any say. When it comes to base stuff, that's generally how I've seen it. So I don't know. I mean, we've got residential that's adjacent to the base, kind of at that northeast portion that's within city limits. So there's already city limits along most of their east side.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Would the applicant like to please address some of the questions that were posed to staff?
Yes, Chairman Brad Emmons again, AVI agent for the owner and applicant. A little history about the urban service boundary and the zoning out here. When this was originally set up, it was basically a square around the city of Cheyenne. It was just an area that the MPO called the urban service boundary. I don't even think it was really discussed from a standpoint of water, sewer. It was an area that the MPO dictated, and it was, I believe, a 4-mile square. So it goes from basically Horse Creek to this western boundary to Chalk Bluff Road to now what's Archer. So that's kind of how this original boundary got set. It had nothing really to do with sewer, water, those kind of things. As we've moved forward, obviously, those things have become much more critical, and we're discussing them on these things. I mean, from a sewer standpoint, you can go as far west as you want, as long as the sewer pipelines are large enough to get them back to the treatment plants, or you could put a new treatment plant further west. Basically, those are things that are being looked at, and actually, I think the commission has a good point. The long-term development of all of Cheyenne, and do we go to another basin? At some point, this basin is going to be completely full, and you have to probably go to Child's Draw, or you might have to go to a basin to the south if you want to keep developing at urban standards. So I think that's a question that needs to be looked at, and the city, I think, with their comp plan amendment stuff and things that are going forward, that should be one of their primary discussion points, is where the long term. We need to be thinking way longer on some future things than 10, 15, 20 years. Those are kind of 50-year discussions. I look at what's out there residentially, and this would be my opinion, but when you have Sweetgrass, Whitney Ranch, Saddle Ridge is still ongoing, and the amount of building permits that are pulled each year, there's a vast amount of residential areas still available. Are they going to end up someday not being all there? That's going to be true. Someday they'll all fill up. So I think the long range planning of all of these areas are something the city needs to be doing. But at this point in time, these areas would not be full urban residential development this far out west. I mean, like what Connor's talking about, of if you put that many homes out here so far from where the current fire stations are, police stations, there's a lot of demand, and these business parks don't put near the demand on those public services as residential does. So I think that's kind of the stuff on the western boundary. And the ownership group, this was owned by one family. It has completed some probate stuff and finished up, and so they are finished with that. And I believe it's 2 separate. The eastern is one Cox family, the western is the other Cox family. However, there is a parcel with this annexation and zone change that is owned by the eastern parcel. They own that little bit that's on the south side of Happy Jack Road and a little bit that's on the north side of Happy Jack Road. So both people are part of this project. So they are aware of what's going on and are okay with it. From that standpoint. So I think those were there any other specific questions that I missed?
Okay, thank you. And I believe we'll open up for public discussion. Are there any members of the public who are still here to talk to and to speak on this issue? Now that I think we've probably got the issue that prior comment was intended to address.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Michael White, 6605 Van Buren Avenue, Laramie County. I guess one of the questions I have, and I don't mean to put Connor on the spot. I remember some of the other areas that were part of the county and the city, will say where Brad's familiar with Whitney Ranch on this specific topic. And my understanding was the commissioners had to do the approval of it. So I'm confused. So I'm going to ask the commissioners tomorrow on this, why they don't have to put it up for full agenda. My comment would be, let's be honest. Let's get Brad up here to tell us exactly what the land's going to be used for. You guys talk about residential housing. Well, let's put it out here in the final deal. What's the land going to be used for? Now, maybe this is not the right time for it, but I think it is. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak to this item? Are there any members of the public who are on Zoom who wish to speak to this item? Public comment going once, going twice. Public comment is closed. I'd invite the applicant to come to the podium and address questions raised at public comment.
Mr. Chairman Brad Emmons, AVI agent for the applicant and the owners. Currently, it's going to be a business park with the possibility of a data center that would go into that area. So that's not confirmed or finalized or anything like that, but currently they're trying to develop it as a business park. So if again, I believe if you want me to answer the question for Connor, the city is following the rules that we've done on these as we've moved through, and I believe it's directly in the Plan Cheyenne document is where it says that it goes to the county for comment only.
And to clarify, to the county for comment only in the event that it is annexed to the city. Is that correct?
Mr.
Connor?
Chair, just so I can make it clear enough for the for both the public and for the record, let me open up my memo I sent to the county commissioners because I believe it even references the section of Plan Cheyenne. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and I'll read what's in the memo. According to the plan amendment process and procedure section outlined in the introduction section of Plan Cheyenne, any proposed Plan Cheyenne amendment will go before the governing body that will have jurisdiction for comment, go to the governing body that will not have jurisdiction for comment only. Example, proposal to amend land uses within city limits goes to the county first for comment only. And then basically I state that the current proposed Plan Cheyenne amendment will edit the future land use map amendment and goes into kind of what that is. But in Plan Cheyenne itself, it basically states that the amendment will only go before the governing body of jurisdiction, basically before the governing body that will not have jurisdiction for comment only. So I guess it would be the same thing if it was a county zoning or a county plan amendment. It would only go to city council for comment only. But again, because this is going to be within city limits and we delay the actual approval of this future land use map amendment to basically after the annexation, and it's not approved until after the annexation, it only goes to the county commissioners for comment only. They do not actually have it on their agenda as something they vote on. And that does come directly from Plan Cheyenne in the process and procedures section as outlined in the introduction of that document.
Okay, thank you. And then for clarification, anything we're doing here is contingent upon annexation by the city council.
Mr. Chair, through you, yes. So with your recommendation, council won't see that until basically the end. Actually, I think they won't even see it till the beginning of May, is when it basically will be at Public Service Committee for May 4th, I believe.
Should be the first May, first.
Yeah. So
Monday in
May 4th would be the first Monday where this will actually be discussed in front of council, because then it will line up with the final reading of the annexation on May 11th. And then this will not be on consent. The way that it would work on the agenda, which I have to, again, work out with the clerk's office, is we would have the annexation, assigned zoning. This would be pulled from consent. They would have to, I forgot what it's called, but they would have to basically amend the agenda or use Robert's rules to basically move this item from where it is under resolutions to be before the zone change be approved, and then the zone change ordinance be read and acted upon.
So as a follow-up, I think I would like to have a conversation about even our action. For the record, our action would be we're acting contingent on future annexation, because I think we're powerless without it.
Correct.
Okay. Much like the last item we had.
Yes. So that's
okay.
With these items, you're basically acting as you're making recommendations based on if this property gets annexed.
Okay. Thank you. I think everything's closed. I think we're to the point of a motion by the commission for debate, discussion. The chair will accept a motion.
Mr. Chair, and this is, of course, just on item F, which is the future land use amendment.
Yes, we only want to do one at a time.
I move to approve the resolution amending the future land use plan for 1,193.4 acres of land west of Round Top Road and north of Happy Jack Road, as shown in the future land use map provided, adding land to the urban service boundary, designating that land mixed-use employment, and changing land adjacent to that addition from urban transition residential to mixed-use employment.
And before we get too far, is that the right number of acres? Is that the proper acre count? Okay.
I'll second that.
Got a second? Is there any discussion? Any desire to amend to account for the contingency of non-annexation? Or anything like that?
But Chair, I personally think we would be fine not having that contingency, because I don't foresee city council moving forward with approving this if it's not annexed. I feel like it would be kind of outside of their lane to amend it without having the jurisdiction.
And Mr. Chair, I should note that if the annexation wasn't approved for some reason, I would probably get up and also tell them right away, one, don't approve the assigned zoning, and then don't approve any of the zonings that come after it.
Yeah.
And I will say they understand that.
Mr. Chair, I think just the thing Connor went through with Plan Cheyenne and the rules of procedure for that, I think makes it impossible for the city council to change this land use area without amending or without annexing the land. The county commission then could change the land use out there because it would still be under their jurisdiction, but not under the city's.
I guess my concern is whether or not we've got jurisdiction to make this recommendation absent acknowledgement that this is contingent on annexation at this level.
Mr. Chair, we've done this numerous times this way. So I guess if we decide now that that we need to slow down and get these things lined out in order, we've done a lot of them, I think, exactly this way.
Any further discussion from the commission? Any discussion or comment from those of us who are on Zoom? Hearing none. Will staff please call roll for item F?
Megan Connor,
No.
Lonnie Olson,
Aye.
Tony Laird,
Aye.
Daryl Hibbins,
Aye.
Amy Hernandez.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, that motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And now the chair is looking for a motion on item G.
Chair, I move to approve the rezoning of 1,197.76 acres of land west of Round Top Road and north of Happy Jack Road to BP Business Park as shown in the attached zone change map, noting that the project meets the review criteria for approval.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. Discussion by the commission, comments, desired amendments. Any comment or discussion from those of us on Zoom?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just would like to see us examine other data centers are a good idea around cities, and it's blown up all over the internet. I see it across the country, and quite frankly, I find it terrifying. So it's going to be a big no for me because I find that business park is analogous with data center, just concerning for me.
Thank you. Any other discussion by the commission? Seeing none. Mr. Chair, staff, will staff please call roll for item G?
Amy Hernandez,
Aye.
Lonnie Olson,
Aye.
Daryl Hibbins,
Aye.
Megan Connor,
No.
Tony Laird.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, that motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Is there any desire for a brief break? We've been at this for a couple of hours.
Chair, I would entertain a 5-minute break.
Okay.
If
Okay. With that, meeting is in recess for 5 minutes. We can reconvene at 15 after. Okay, it is 8:15 and the planning commission will reconvene. Staff, please read item H. And do we have our two members back to Zoom? Okay. Okay. Okay, well, with that, will staff please read item H into the record?
What Charles had to say. Item H, PUDC 26-40 O'Neill Edge expedited plat.
Okay, do we have an applicant?
Chair, members of the Planning Commission, good evening, Brandon Swain. This is going to be brief. Mr. Sayers has me on a 60-second timer up here. First, in full disclosure, we have had 5 members of the public leave. The first 3 gentlemen were just here to sit in. The last 2 were here for the Cox development. What you have here before you is a development I'm calling O'Neill Edge. I think maybe December of 24, possibly. I was here for Fifth Street Towns. This is simply just a duplication of that product. The development at Fifth Street Towns, excuse me, is complete. 4 units total, 2 pairs of twin homes. I'm on video saying I'd hold the price at $250,000, and that's what they're listed for. We sold 2 of them. You've got to carve out these affordable housing opportunities somewhere. Often it comes from infill, often on tight lots. It's just the nature of the business. This one in particular, the lots from east to west are 60 feet deep. The Fifth Street Towns project was 42. So not as much relief needed for this product. However, I would be remiss not to mention that I am asking for parking relief on this. Typically, units are required to have 2 parking spaces per unit. These units don't have garages. It's all on street. So far, it's working out fine with the other project. This parcel was also slightly larger than my last one, as it included 2 lots. So we have a 5th remainder lot that's going to be fronting 5th Street. Could be single family, could be duplex, but that one will have alley loaded parking. So not anticipating that's going to exacerbate the parking issue at all. That being said, I'm available for any questions.
Commission, any questions for the applicant? Commissioners on Zoom? Questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Staff, please read your report into the record.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Morgan Dennis, Planning and Development. This is an expedited plat for 0.3 acre parcel located southwest of the intersection of West 5th Street and O'Neill Avenue. This lot is currently vacant. The purpose of this plat is to create 5 lots for residential development. The future land use map designates this parcel as urban residential. Zoning for this parcel is MR, medium density residential. Surrounding development in the area is primarily residential. 4 of the lots proposed fall within the SD3 lot type, and the remaining lot is considered DD7. All lots proposed are buildable in the MR zone. On the preliminary map, plat map, there is not a water or sewer service easement. This easement has been requested by the Board of Public Utilities. Prior to signing this easement will need to be added to the final plat map. Staff recommends approval with the condition that the water and sewer easement is added prior to signing. I stand for questions.
Any questions for staff by the commission? Commissioners on Zoom, questions for staff?
Chair, I have a question, but for the applicant after we get through staff. I just thought of one.
Okay, hearing none. I'll take the question for the applicant.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, through you to the applicant. I'm just curious with your previous development, if any of the surrounding landowners have mentioned or commented on the development. I know kind of these things are hard to visualize. So once they're built, you can kind of see it. I'm just curious if there's been any input by those surrounding. I know it's not pertaining to this application, but I know it's another infill that has similar.
Sure. So the development that I just finished, again, Fifth Street Towns, this is on the southeast corner of Snyder and Fifth Street, heavily trafficked area. I think first people were shocked that I could get 4 units in there. it's going to sound like I'm blowing smoke, but to be honest with you, I've got nothing but compliments on it. It's been very well received. I mean, yeah, like I just had keys replaced, so I called the lock shop. The guy called me the day after and wants me to run a project for him. So I guess that's kind of the nature of how it's going. But overall, it's been well received. I don't know, their quartz counters, tile and stuff. I just have a bare minimum that I do, but I think it tends to exceed what most single family standards are, especially for that area. So it's been mostly well received. Tenants are happy. Again, I'm not the owner, but this is just feedback that I've got from the people who have purchased the units. So yeah, happy to address any other questions.
Any other questions? Any other questions for staff or the applicant from the commission? Okay, I'll now open this item up for public comment. Are there any members of the public present who wish to comment? Are there any members of the public on Zoom who wish to comment? Hearing none. Public comment is now closed. I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the O'Neill Edge preliminary plat, advancing the final plat to the governing body with staff recommended conditions.
It's been moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. This item is available for discussion by the commission. Comments from commission, discussion, amendments, commissioners on Zoom. Any comments, discussion? Hearing none, will staff please call roll?
Megan Connor,
Aye.
Lonnie Olson,
Aye.
Daryl Hibbins,
Aye.
Tony Laird,
Aye.
Amy Hernandez.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, that motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Will staff please read item I into the record? And I guess we can handle both I and J presentations together. They appear to come.
Mr. Chair, I'll leave that up to the commission, but yes, both items are related to one another. Is the same project. So if we want to conduct that the same way we conducted F and G, we can definitely do that. Okay. So I will read both item I and J into the record and we'll discuss those together.
I misspoke. Sorry. Yes.
Item I, PUDC dash. Nope, you're good. PUDC dash 26-59, Stansberry Farms future land use map amendment. And item J, PUDC dash 26-53, Stansberry Farms zoning map amendment.
Okay, will you? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was asking for the report. Will the applicant, do we have an applicant? I'm sorry, I'm falling asleep here. Will the applicant please present items I and J?
Mr. Chairman, through you, John Sayers, agent for True Grit Land Development. I did want to point out, I wasn't asked if I wanted to present both at the same time like you did, Mr. Emmons, but I'm okay with that just to keep us moving.
Do them individually.
No, we all like to get home sometime tonight. I'm here asking for the future land use map amendment for a parcel of land located near Southwest Drive. Currently, this property is affected by 3 different zoning designations. Light industrial exists, agricultural residential, and agricultural. Our request is to coordinate the parcels under a single LI zoning designation, which is consistent with several adjacent and nearby properties. The parcel is bounded by Interstate 80 to the north, Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad to the east, and Southwest Drive to the west, and vacant land to the south. Due to this location and surrounding context, we have received interest in potential projects that align with LI zoning and a mixed-use employment classification. However, this request does differ from the future land use map. which currently designates the area as mixed-use residential. I would note that actual development patterns in this area have already diverged from that designation. For example, properties north of Interstate 80 are zoned LI, even where the future land use map shows mixed-use residential, mixed-use commercial, and open space to the north. To the east, beyond the Burlington Northern Railroad corridor, properties are zoned LI under a mixed-use employment designation. And to the south, existing uses include storage facilities, home-based businesses, and other non-residential activities. Because of these existing conditions, it would be incomplete to say this area is developing consistently with the future land use map. There is also a jurisdictional complication between city and the county immediately south of our parcels, which further impacts coordinated planning and long-term development in this area. Additionally, our property is encumbered by overhead power lines and buried gas lines that utility providers have indicated will not be relocated. These constraints significantly limit the feasibility of mixed-use residential development and were not fully accounted for in the future land use map. While the future land use map is an important planning tool, it is not static. There are circumstances where amendments are appropriate, and we believe this is one of those cases. In regards to city comments on criteria, we respectfully disagree with the staff's conclusion that the proposed future land use map amendment largely does not comply. We're at a 4-4 standby right now before I convince you otherwise. With multiple review criteria. While the comprehensive plan anticipated residential development in this area, actual development plans, patterns, infrastructure constraints, and market realities have materially diverged since adoption of the plan. The comprehensive plan itself recognizes that amendments are appropriate when assumptions no longer align with conditions on the ground. The following response will be addressing those items. Number one, based on beneficial or addressees unforeseen issues. Benefit to the community. Staff correctly describes the mixed-use employment category as supporting business campuses, style development similar to North Range, Swan Ranch, High Plains Business Park. These areas provide employment opportunities, tax base expansions, compatibility with major transportation, and reduce conflicts with residential neighborhoods. Unforeseen issues. While staff notes that transportation barriers and lack of water mains existed in 2014, the plan could not foresee how persistent and constraining those conditions would remain more than a decade later since adoption. No residential subdivisions have materialized in this subject area. Market activity has favored storage, warehousing, and industrial uses. Along with utility providers, that major utility relocations will not occur, substantially limiting the residential feasibility. Infrastructure improvements remain speculative and many years out. The comprehensive plan encourages monitoring development trends and responding when assumptions prove inaccurate. That threshold has been met here. Our conclusion is the proposal does address unforeseen persistence of infrastructure constraints and market non-response, and therefore complies with criteria number one. On number two, compatibility with the surrounding area and plan policies, staff correctly identified that the subject property is bounded by LI zoning to the north, east, west, and southeast. I-80 and Burlington Northern create strong physical and functional barriers. Recent trends are predominantly industrial or storage related. While residential zoning exists to the southwest, and I mean southwest along Southwest Drive and further way to the south, that development is already buffered by distance, roadway separations, and existing non-residential uses. Compatibility does not require uniformity. It requires appropriate transitions, which can be addressed at zoning, platting, and site design stages through buffering, setbacks, and orientation. Importantly, the future land use map goal of mixed-use development west of the Burlington, Northern Santa Fe has not materialized in practice in this location despite more than a decade of opportunity. The proposal is functionally compatible with existing land uses and barriers and better reflects actual development patterns than the current designation. Number 7 on the criterion was strict adherence to the plan. Staff acknowledges the plan encourages responsiveness to market demand. Recent land use trends have been non-residential. While the plan may have originally intended to phase out industrial uses along Southwest Drive, that outcome has not occurred, and strict adherence now would require forcing residential development into an environment dominated by industrial zoning and utility constraints. Strict adherence under these conditions would produce an outcome inconsistent with livability, market feasibility, and long-term success. It is our conclusion that criterion 7 is met because adherence to the plan's original assumption no longer produces a reasonable planning outcome. The last item is number 8, public welfare and plan consistency. We respectfully disagree with the conclusion that approving the amendment would be detrimental to public welfare. No specific residential project has been proposed in over a decade. The plan does not guarantee housing production simply by designation. Housing goals must be balanced with location suitability, and employment land near interstate and rail access is a finite resource. Concerns about domino effects are speculative and can be addressed through future discretionary reviews. Conversely, maintaining an unworkable designation risk long-term vacancy or underutilization, which does not serve the public welfare. Plan Cheyenne policies are mixed, as staff acknowledges. Where policies conflict, the commission is empowered to weigh market evidence, infrastructure realities, functional compatibility, utility providers, long-term economic resilience. Our conclusion is, on balance, the proposal advances public welfare by aligning land use with realistic development outcomes while preserving opportunities for housing in more suitable locations. We respectfully submit that criteria 3 through 6 are fully met per staff. Criterion 1, 2, 7, and 8 are met when evaluated against current conditions rather than outdated assumptions. The comprehensive plan explicitly supports flexibility and responsiveness. For these reasons, we request the approval of the future land use map amendment. Further noted, based on some of the conversation that has occurred tonight, our property is already zoned in the city, and it is in the city. So it is not vacant outside county parcel coming in. So all 3 parcels are that way. If we weren't experiencing this situation with data centers at this point, staff would be asking us to make sure that all 3 parcels align with current zoning for what we planned on using. We are a land developer. We develop homes all day long, as you will get Harmony Valley coming in here shortly with you. And as you saw, Bison Apartments tonight. We have no vision for this being residential housing over there because of the constraints by the railroad, the interstate, and Southwest Drive. Are we bringing in a data center? No, that is not the intent whatsoever. The situation, though, is that when you have one piece, which is the strip to the very north of our land, it is zoned LI. The next piece is AG and then AR. We are simply trying to go ahead and do what our surrounding neighbors have done with LI and bring it forward to LI and use that use. I know next month you have property to the south coming in for a data center. I think every property has to be viewed separately and on its own merits and concerns. And based on that, I would ask that you not consider it as a data center, but more as the LI zoning in this area that fits the use with the adjacent properties. And I'm here for any questions.
I've got a question. We're talking about opportunities and planning ahead based on the presence of infrastructure, and the railroad has been highlighted as a source of an opportunity in your presentation. Is there a siding there or anything that would make that railroad accessible to this parcel that I'm not seeing? Or is this just the railroad is passing through? And
Mr. Chair, through you, if I may answer your question, the railroad's there so that should a supplier or a manufacturer for data centers or just for anything in particular for buildability, as in the property directly to the northwest. I would point out that you have CH Arbor, you have Advanced Air, you have many warehouse type businesses that either are producing or storing and sale items. We could see that as a possibility, and the connection to the railroad does lend that possibility. So to rule it out would be inappropriate for that area.
So this is a stretch of the railroad that the railroad would be willing to serve adjacent uses without a siding? Is that what you're telling me?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is a possibility. It could become a spur off to the side. It could not. We could work on that. But at this point, we can't do anything with the AG zoning or AR. So we can't pursue other items until that resolution comes forward.
Any other questions for the applicant from commission? Commissioners on Zoom? Okay, I think thank you for now. Please stand by. Staff, please read the report into the record.
Mr. Chair, Connor White, Planning and Development Department, filling in for Seth Lloyd. So I'll try to do my best. The two projects before you, again, this is a future land use map amendment and a zone change. The zone change is contingent on that future land use map amendment. The area we're looking at, it's south of I-80 and east of Southwest Drive. Currently on the future land use map, it is mixed use residential, and then it is zoned technically county LI, city AG, city AR. The county LI portion comes in through looking back at when that portion was actually annexed. It was tied to a plat. The plat was never recorded, which means the zoning never actually went into effect. So it was zoned LI in the county though, so it does have something on it. We've counted it as city LI for the longest time. So the applicant is requesting future land use map amendment for roughly 94 acres of land from mixed use residential to mixed use employment to accommodate a zone change to LI light industrial for the purpose of unspecified mixed use employment uses. Property is shown as mixed use residential in the future land use map. The mixed use residential category promotes self-supporting neighborhoods. The primary contain housing, a range of residential housing types such as single family, duplex, patio home, townhouse apartments, condos, live work units would be the majority of the uses within this mixed use residential category with that designation. And that zone or that future land use designation does consider the mixed use residential zone district to be the most optimal zone. However, various residential zones in later intense commercial zones could also be appropriate. The future land use map, this will run with concurrent with the zone change, but this one's going to be a little different. This one, because all properties are currently within city limits, this will actually just go straight to city council for introduction next Monday, which means it will be approved. Basically, it'll have consideration prior to the zoning being approved. It does not need to be approved the same night. Decision on the future land use can take place ahead of that zone change because the zone change is contingent on the future land use. So this one works a little different than the one that we discussed earlier. Still goes to county commissioners tomorrow afternoon for comment only, but then would be introduced to council the same basically night as the zone change would next Monday, and then would go through its two readings, have final decision, later this month, and then the zone change would have final consideration the second Monday in May. Through staff's review, there's a lot of review on this specific parcel, taking a look at the area. You probably noticed that with staff's conclusion, there is rationale for both either approval or denial. The rationale for approval would be that although the current future land use map encourages rezoning out of the current light industrial zones to allow non-industrial uses, most of the recent development in the vicinity has been industrial in nature, including storage units in newly created county PUD zoning or PUD zones along Southwest Drive. LI and PUD, both LI and PUD industrial zoning exists within the area proposed to be modified and on three sides. Although the LU zone to the southwest, or also the LU zone to the southwest, although currently developed with residential uses, would allow for light industrial uses via conditional use process in the county. The rationale for denying, despite the LI zone and industrial development existing in the area at the time of the comprehensive plan, Plan Cheyenne designates all the land surrounded by Lincoln Way, the BNSF, Railroad, College, and I-25 with non-industrial future land use designations, expecting the area to transition to residential and commercial development. Housing is needed in the Cheyenne region, and taking land away from future residential development without adding residential development elsewhere may further limit opportunities to increase housing supply. There is also currently residential development to the south and southwest that could be negatively impacted by future industrial development. Furthermore, no specific uses have been identified for the area, but outside of the application, discussions occurred regarding development of a campground or a recreational vehicle park. However, specific development would not necessarily trigger the land use plan because it can be accommodated via conditional use in the zone districts that already exist. Staff recognizes that the increase in construction activity with numerous large-scale projects and the need for employee housing. However, if the end goal of the applicant is to construct a campground or recreational vehicle park, alternative paths to move forward exist, and there may be unintended consequences of changing the future land use map and zoning to accommodate a permissible use in the present zone districts. The evaluation of the land use plan amendment and the related zoning should be based on all possible alternatives in the desired zone district supported by mixed use employment land use category. Once this property is changed to mixed use employment, the entire area might domino into industrial development, and opportunities for future permanent housing in the area may be lost. Housing is a defined need to the community, and it would be detrimental to the public welfare to take land anticipated for urban residential development and change it to non-residential uses. Again, this area is constrained when it comes to its boundaries. You do have the interstate to the north, the railroad to the east. Again, through staff's review, there was a lot of balancing and trying to figure out which direction this should go. Ultimately, staff's recommendation does come to recommending denial of the future land use map amendment for this parcel. And I will have two different slides at the end just in case Planning Commission changes their mind or decides to go and approve it. There are two slides. Staff does recommend denial based on our review and the criteria. And based on the housing needs and the fact that with this parcel, this could trigger more industrial development within the area. And in the end, if this is zoned LI, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be developed the way the developer is proposing it. As staff, we still have to look at the fact that you give it LI zoning, it can develop with any industrial use. With the zone change, as staff reviewed that, again, the zone change basically heavily kind of relies on the future land use map amendment. So there are two motions with that one as well. Basically, if Planning Commission does recommend approval of the future land use map amendment, staff would support the zone change. Looking through the review criteria, if the future land use map amendment is proposed to be mixed use employment, then the LI zone does fit mixed use employment. That is one of the zone districts that we would expect with that land use designation. Again, with the review, there is LI zoning to the east, to the north. So again, with that future land use designation changing, staff would support the zoning map amendment to LI. If the future land use map amendment isn't recommended for approval or approved, I should say, and is denied, then staff would recommend denial of that zone change due to the land being under the future land use map as mixed use residential. Again, the mixed use residential zone or mixed use future land use designation does not support LI zoning. It supports more of the mixed use or commercial or residential type zone districts. As I noted, LI zoning, if that is approved, LI zoning does allow for light industrial uses. Again, we haven't had any specific projects submitted for this. So that's one of the things that I've had to review is the LI zone does allow for data centers. It does allow for industrial uses. Yes, it does allow for a recreational vehicle park or campground as a permitted use, but it allows for a lot of other industrial uses as well. So all of those have to be taken into consideration with our review. So again, if the future land use map is recommended or is approved by Planning Commission, then staff would recommend approval of that LI zone. If Planning Commission does deny the future land use map, staff would recommend denial of the zoning map amendment as well. With that, I am available for any questions.
Chair, I have a couple of questions for staff on this one. So there was a note about the lack of water mains, and just on staff's opinion, do you think that upsizing those water mains would likely be easier by an industrial user or a residential use? That was.
Mr. Chair, through you, and I believe through staff's review, we did look at that. And I think that might be part of the reason for recommending approval is, yes, when you have a larger industrial user, they may have more money to be able to put towards those extensions than say a residential. It kind of depends though, because I mean, if you look at some of these larger kind of residential developments like Whitney Ranch and stuff, that's a residential developer. They're having to extend mains clear out to where they are for their residential development as well. But again, that also hasn't developed as quickly. So I believe that might be one of the reasons that we had in here for approval is an industrial developer could bring in those mains and then maybe that will trigger residential development afterwards. But again, I don't know. But I believe that was something that staff did think about. I don't know if we have exact ways of measuring and saying, yes, if it goes industrial, yes, it'll be easier for mains over a residential. But I think that is something we've discussed and looked at. And I believe that is one of the reasons for recommending approval. Again, this was a whole kind of balancing. That's why Seth had at the end, there's reasons for approval, there's reasons for denial. Ultimately, staff did go with recommending denial, but wanted to provide that there could be reasons to approve. It's trying to balance everything.
I got two more follow-up questions, I believe. The next one kind of piggybacks off that one, and we look at policy 2.5B, workforce housing, and I kind of assume that workforce housing is more of the attainable housing. It's not going to be your larger lot. So just with that in mind and the extension of water mains, do you foresee that this would be attainable housing? I'm just
Mr. Chair, through you. So if this were to develop the way the developer has discussed with us to a campground or RV recreational vehicle park under our new campground regulations, I would say that's considered workforce housing. That's people basically coming and living in their RVs for these larger projects. I don't know what it's going to cost for all the main extensions and how that's going to be impacted with depending what the development is. So that, I mean, that fits under that workforce housing though, if that's how it gets developed. But again, as I mentioned, that development can take place without the future land use map amendment. It has another process to go through, that conditional use process.
And Chair, my last one for now. And this is going to also spur within the community housing need. And we previously saw future land use map amendment for probably about an exponential amount more of land. It was about 100 to 1,000. And just looking at that and our community housing need, I feel like that would probably build about, this would be about 200 homes on a 0.4 acre lot, or no, I'm a little off, but I believe the other one would be about 2,000 homes. So I'm just trying to tease out how that community housing need, and also when we look at the surrounding area, we have, I personally, I would rather live probably on Happy Jack Road than being bound by two major interstates in their corridor, the BNSF Railroad, and then having an adjacent Magellan pipeline right facility. So I'm just trying to understand staff's reasoning why the community housing need was more applicable in this situation than in the previous.
Mr. Chair, through you. So I believe with that, when staff looked at the other one again, it just came to being how far it is from the actual urban core. That's more on the edge of what we had as the urban service boundary. This one, you're still kind of closer. I do understand with the discussion of having the railroad, and you've got I-80 right there as well. With the mixed use residential designation, it looks at higher density. That urban transition that was approved to go to mixed use employment out on the edge, urban transition would not be looking at the higher density. So when you say upwards of 2,000 homes, I don't think that's what we would be seeing out on that property. Urban transition you'd be looking at the AR residential zone or maybe the LR zone district. So you'd be looking at a lot less density out that far. The mixed use residential zone district here, you could be looking at multifamily. You could be looking at a lot denser residential development with that designation. So I think that's where it comes down to, you've got a larger property that we were recommending go to mixed use employment. It wouldn't be as dense a residential development if we left it as that urban transition as going from mixed use residential to now mixed use employment. The mixed use residential, again, it allows for that higher density than you would get in the urban transition. So that's I believe how staff looked at both of those. That would be my analysis of it. Again, I'm filling in for Seth, so I don't know if I'm mentioning everything he would have liked to mention and how he specifically reviewed it. But from the way that I would be looking at it, that's how we would look at the two. Is urban transition, you're going to get a lot less density than you would with your mixed use residential.
I'd like to get some more clarification on staff's analysis under review criteria two. I was a little the compatibility with the surrounding area and the conclusion that the proposal does not comply with that. I was pretty surprised at the end of the discussion that the staff reached the conclusion that it did. Coming into this, I was trying to figure out why we had housing, projected residential housing adjacent to our our tank storage facilities. I know we discussed kind of a long-term transportation, trying to figure out how to connect this area maybe across the interstate. But I do know we recently discussed this area and trying to figure out how to get people and to be able to move around this area. And it was really problematic, and how to get people out and safety in and designating different corridors in the transportation plan for this area. But I have a hard time envisioning people stampeding to live in an area that's sandwiched amongst two interstates, a railroad, a pipeline, and light industrial in the area around. I do know that what we're really supposed to be working with here is not so much what is the specific development proposal before us, even though that should guide us, but we're talking about an amendment to the comprehensive to the future land use map, which is much broader than just the zoning map. And conceptually, does this area generally make more sense to be in industrial employment type uses or residential type uses? And so I guess I don't understand how what this amendment would do is not compatible with the surrounding uses, freight corridors, and land uses. I don't understand that, and even with that one flip at that point, then in my mind, there's more things that it complies with than that it doesn't comply with. Can you maybe illuminate the thinking of how you reached the proposal doesn't comply or is not compatible with the surrounding areas more than what's on the page? Because the logic didn't flow for me.
Mr. Chairman, this is Megan online. May I comment?
Yes, please. Thank you for chiming in.
I actually see where staff is coming from on this one, because if you look at a map, it looks very flat. And of course, it looks like it's surrounded by light industrial. But if you're familiar with the area, this property is actually kind of walled off, so to speak, from those light industrials with the railroad, the interstate. It creates like a section where it doesn't quite align. It doesn't quite look as flat as it does on the map. So it does kind of look like it's sectioned off and more part of that residential area, in my opinion. And that's where I would support staff in their recommendation on this property.
Thank you, Commissioner. Honor, it's good to hear from you.
I guess, Mr. Chair, I can try to answer your question.
Yes, please do.
I believe where Seth was going with this was kind of actually along the lines of what Commissioner Connor was saying, that you do have the railroad, you do have I-80. Those do create hard boundaries, though, when it comes to the zone districts that you have east and north. With the area, again, with it being a designation of mixed use residential, we're not saying the whole thing is going to be residential. You would expect commercial to also be developed in the area. It'd be that mix of both commercial and residential. But I think the biggest thing that Seth was looking at also was the park that's out there. Mixed use residential does expect to have kind of that closeness to those open space areas. The county does have a park that is being upgraded and has been being worked on. So that does have the amenity that's out there. But I think the biggest thing when he was looking at compatibility is the boundaries and what is actually in the area. Once you basically have those boundaries there and you don't look past them, what does that area look like? Otherwise, I don't know if I have the best answer for you.
I think I understand where you're coming from, even though I don't know that I think of the railroad so much as a boundary as an impact. So the entire corridor.
Boyd, Chair, sorry, this is Charles Bloom, Plan Development Director. Could you rephrase your question one more time and perhaps I can take a stab at that for you?
And I was asking for more clarification on how a staff reached the conclusion that the proposed amendment does not comply with comply with the review criteria that it be compatible with the surrounding area and the goals and policies of the plan. And I was not so much focused on the land uses that are on the other side of these various boundaries, even though I think they're highly relevant, but with the existence of the pipeline, the railroad, the interstates, or I-80 as well, not just I-80, but even thinking about I-25 not far to the west, not so much as boundaries and buffers, but as active freight corridors and the impacts of them on the area and how this would not comply with or would not be compatible. The amendment would not be compatible with those.
I see. Okay. Apologies for that. I was just double checking to make sure that I was on the same page there with you. And all right, I'm pulling up the staff report. As Connor had noted, this was put together by Seth. He put this together, and he's absent today. And I was actually out when this was being developed. But really, what was looking at with this whole package was it really was a 50-50. Staff was pretty much split right up and down the middle. So if there's something that the Planning Commission feels is, it is compatible, if you choose to make that finding, it would be something we would be satisfied with. So if you don't necessarily agree with what staff's analysis was here, you all are welcome to overrule it and make that recommendation. Really what it had come down to here, and Connor kind of touched on that a little bit, was there were some other areas surrounding this development, like the open space park area to the north, which was owned and maintained by the county, that this would further isolate that. That there was some residential in the area that could be developed, and it was just looking at how it all comes together with those pre-described boundaries that are there right now, Interstate 80 and the railroad. The applicant did note that there is land to the south of this, which presently it is believe it's zoned mixed use residential right now, where there have been some discussions of a potential data center at that location. So that could change the way that this whole compatibility element looks. But if this is something that the Planning Commission feels is met, you're more than welcome to make that finding to move this forward in whatever way you would like.
Okay, thank you. And is
You're
there
welcome.
another topic? Has there been any feedback or discussion that staff is aware of regarding the neighborhood to the south and feedback about a proposed, dare I say, campground? Has there been comment that I'm missing here regarding that, or is that just kind of out in the ether?
Mr. Chair, I believe I've only had one phone call. Again, at the time, we don't know if it's going to be a RV camp or campground, so I did not specify that to the person that called because we don't have any formal submittal. I just told them they're planning to zone it to light industrial, which allows for industrial uses. Their biggest concern is, like I feel like we see with a lot of projects, traffic in the area. So that was, I don't believe they were in support of either the zone change or the future land use map amendment. But that was, I think, their biggest concern that they had mentioned to me, which is stating that it was being proposed to go to light industrial, which allows for light industrial uses, was traffic.
Any other questions for staff on this?
Mr. Chair, this is Megan online. I do
Yes.
have two comments. I just find it concerning when you look around Cheyenne, the amount of light industrial or industrial that we shove right on top of residential areas. It's actually unbelievable to me. I've not seen it anywhere else. I would hate to continue to further that. And two, unspecified use is concerning, just in general, because I believe in transparency. And so if there was a conditional use or something they wanted to do that fit light industrial, but could also fit conditionally under what they have, I would prefer to have us approve a conditional use on the property. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? I'll open this up for public comment. Is there any member of the public that's here that wants to comment on this on either of these? We're mostly seem to be discussing the land use map amendment.
And I should note, for any public that's online, please use the raise hand feature.
Yes, please do that. Is there any member of the public online? Okay, with that, I'm going to. Okay. Okay, I struggle with finding my hand raising feature sometimes. Okay. So with that, I'm going to close public comment. Does applicant want to address any of the questions that are out there? Applicant would like to.
Mr. Chair, through you, John Sayers, True Grit agent. So in regards to the water mains, the water main is actually sitting on the north side of Interstate 80. It would have to be brought across. Sewer is across the street. That's it. There is nothing else over there. You do have WAPA running diagonally across the property. I think Mr. Hibbins could probably prove that as he was out there today. We also have a north-south line, and we have two diagonal gas lines running through this area. So as to creating residential housing, we honestly, being in the land development business, this has not been, as owning this, see this as that situation. Currently, we have Bison Brand Landscaping with their nursery out there. we believe that that site will continue to operate at this point. We have been in touch with Jeannie Grogan, who's on the front side of that, and she had no concerns. I did receive a phone call from Nate Davidson just asking what we were doing today, and we'd keep him advised. In regards to attainable housing, I need to point this out because Mr. Olson brought up something. So for what it's worth, we ran at Cox, to be honest with you. And no, it wasn't urban housing. It was this need in this community for what's happening. As you will see next month, we have Harmony Valley 23rd filing coming before this body. That will bring in another 196 single-family residential lots to add to the 112 that we already have, which will be 308. We don't expect that to last 3 years, if two. So when we say we are looking for land, we are looking for land. We understand that you have data centers coming in here, spending big bucks on big pieces of parcel of land, and it makes it very much unattainable for residential home builders and developers to pay that price and get affordable, attainable housing. So we did look at that Cox Ranch specifically for that, because there is a concern that once all this happens in the housing, how many more apartment complexes do we really want that are huge? Are they really long-term residents, or are they people that are actually buying houses and living and staying? So we get it. If anybody gets it in the affordable housing market, we're raising our hands. With that said, being an affordable housing builder, this is not an area we see as residential. I wanted to point out that property at Long College is owned by a lady that lives in Colorado. She has 22.14 acres in the property. I believe it's Mountain Shadow subdivision or so. Those lots have been there forever. No sales, no movement. What you see when you drive out there is you see residences that have 3 or 4 lots combined. They have a house, they have a shop. They don't want any other rules. You also sit back, and if you look at that subdivision, the right-of-way widths are 40 feet. That's it. It doesn't even meet the city standards. I will say Mr. Bloom misquoted the property directly south of us is MUB already. It is not mixed use or residential. So there is that in play at this moment, that is mixed use business. So if somebody was to try to make residential, they would have to go ahead and try to figure that out. Chairman, are you okay? Okay. I get the idea of transparency. I also understand at this exact moment, we potentially have 3 different clients looking at this potential land. One is for an RV campground, and I want to be specifically clear. An RV campground is not a work camp. I have gotten hammered on that already on another property, and hence the reason why you have an RV campground in the set of the UDC guidelines at this point, and staff can clearly tell you that one. That is one option. There is options for manufacturing or data centers and or other uses just for storage, just to help out the community with the need for places for manufacturing and so forth. We're running out of those as well. They don't want to go out to Swan and pay for the big piece of land. There is the option of smaller. The railroad is a consideration significantly based on product availability and what you can get into the community. So I can't fully say that at this moment we are 100% this, that, or the other, but based on the 3 zonings of our property and the surrounding use, that is all LI, regardless of whether or not a railroad or a roadway exists. It does exist that the LI is touching at our property lines at that point. Be happy to answer any other questions.
I think we've closed public comment and gave you a chance to respond to questions. With that, I believe I'm looking for a motion from the commission.
And commission, I should specify, tell me which slide, because this one was not easy to fit on both on one. So
okay, well, let's find out who wants to offer a motion, and they can tell us.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to support the land use change, so I would prefer to make the approved motion.
Okay. Commissioner Laird.
I move to approve the resolution amending the future land use plan for a portion of land south of I-80 and east of Southwest Drive, as shown in the Exhibit A, from mixed-use residential to mixed-use employment.
Do I
I
have a
second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Laird and seconded by Commissioner Hibben. Is there any discussion of the motion by the commission? Is there any discussion by commissioners who are on Zoom?
I think, Mr. Chairman, I've made my stance pretty clear on this one, so you can expect that my vote will go in that direction.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Connor. Any other comment? Desire to amend? Seeing none, will staff please call roll for, and my understanding is this is for item I.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we are on item I, so we are on the future land use map amendment. Lonnie Olson,
Aye.
Megan Connor,
No.
Amy Hernandez.
Nay,
That was a no.
correct.
Daryl Hibbins,
Yes.
Tony Laird.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I believe that motion passes. Because I believe it's affirmative of those present. So I don't know if the chair, there's six members and we've got, it's 3-2.
I never have it though.
Correct. So I would say that motion passes.
Chair, for you, I do believe that it has to be a majority of the planning commission has to vote on this amendment. We just should probably check the bylaws really quick if we can. With that being the case, I believe the chair would need to vote. I'll double check.
I am also going to pull that up. I just want to make sure, just in case we're on session, of how close.
In chair of the commission, I do believe that it may also be outlined in state statute under master plan section that is a majority of the commission to approve a land use plan change.
Okay, let me look that up then.
Here, within our bylaws, chapter 6, section 2, it states official business to transact official business, a quorum must be present. A majority of those present and voting may approve or disapprove official business. The chair shall not vote as a member of the planning commission unless a tie vote occurs of the majority present and voting. I believe with present, that would signify those attending and not the 7 members of the commission, but I could be wrong, because I am not an attorney unlike you.
I would agree that it is those present.
Chair, members of the commission, I have found the relevant state statute. It is Wyoming State Statute 15-1-505, Master Plan Manner of Adopting Generally Certification thereof. It says the commission may adopt the master plan, which is also the land use plan, in parts as the plan progresses or as a whole. Any part of the plan shall correspond generally with one or more of the functional subdivisions of the subject matter thereof. The adoption of the plan or any plan, part, amendment, or addition shall be by resolution carried by the affirmative vote of not less than a majority of the commission. The resolution shall refer expressly to maps, So it is the affirmative vote of the commission. Seth and I had identified this issue when it came to the bylaws and state statutes that they don't quite marry up on that. What Commissioner Olson did note is true. That does say that the chair is able to or shall vote in the event of a tie. I think it would likely, I would think that it could be considered that he could vote in this case if he wanted to move forward with this with a yes vote. I hope that provides a little bit of clarification here.
I think the question is do I need to vote given that the majority of the commission has voted?
Chair,
To the
through
extent
you,
that I need to vote, yes, Charles?
I don't believe you would need to vote. If you did not vote, our message to the governing body would be that you all had a majority vote to approve, which passed, but it was not officially adopted by the Planning Commission because it lacked the majority of the membership. And they, in their turn, would have the ability to adopt it with modifications or just adopt it in general.
Because I'm not convinced that I get to plan and that I get to vote in the absence of a tie.
Chair, that is fair. That's a fair evaluation of the situation.
I think in the absence of a tie, I don't get to vote. Even if I want to vote, I don't think I get to.
I think that's fair. We'll relay this in our memorandum to the governing body so they're aware of what had transpired and why a 3-2 vote is not a vote to approve.
Okay. With that,
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So again, we talked briefly about the process and this so-called resolution and that this planning commission is it one of the approving people on the entities for the resolution? Can the governing body go ahead and approve the resolution even though we quote didn't?
Mr. Chair, yes. So the governing body can basically overrule planning commission and still approve the future land use map amendment.
Okay, because I was thinking, I mean, if there's a big gray area here, we could postpone this action for another month and do some additional research on what exactly we need to have to go forward.
now I'm looking that up. So I guess probably the first step is can staff please report the result of the roll call vote?
Mr. Chair, so due to a 3-2 vote, not having a majority of those on planning commission vote in favor of the recommended motion to approve, that motion does fail.
Okay, and with that, I do think that I need to call for a motion on item J. Commissioner Connor, would you like to offer the motion on item J?
Mr. Chairman, I'm on my phone. I don't have
Okay.
the screen in front of me.
Okay. You're getting told right. Do I have a motion on item J?
Chair,
Commissioner Olson.
I move to recommend the governing body deny the rezoning of tract 1, H and B tracts and lot 2, block 1, H and B tracts, second filing to LA Light Industrial as shown in the attached zone change map, noting the project does not meet review criteria 1, 2, and 8. The LA zoning request being incompatible with the future land use designation of mixed use residential.
I second.
I've got a motion and a second.
Chair. I just want to state for the record, I am moving to deny this due to the future land use map not passing and that being staff's recommendation and seeing it incompatible. I was in favor of the future land use map being changed, but due to us having to go with our review criterion, I am voting to support the denial.
Okay. Any other further comment from other members of the commission? Debate, discussion? Hearing none, will staff please call roll?
Tony Laird.
Aye.
Daryl Hibbins.
Aye.
Lonnie Olson.
Aye.
Megan Connor.
No.
Megan, just for clarification, this is a recommendation of denial for the zone change. So vote yes would be in favor of that motion.
Thank you for clarifying, Connor. I'd like to change my vote to aye.
Amy Hernandez.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, that motion passes.
Thank you. Other business staff?
Chair, could I have a brief moment? If your commission allows that in you.
Yes.
So you guys might have seen that there's an open vacancy for the planning commission, and I just want to note that that is me. If we do have a mid-month meeting, that'll be my last one. I'm retaining my current job in the city of Cheyenne, but I will be residing outside of Cheyenne and the county. And thus I don't feel ethically it's right to serve on a board where I don't live in the community, and also per our bylaws, I can't. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone on the board and staff. It's been an honor serving up here with you all, and I hope for the best moving forward.
Thank you for your service. Any other business staff announcements?
Unless Charles corrects me if I'm wrong, we don't have a mid-month planning commission meeting. So this is Lonnie's last meeting.
Thank you.
Connor is correct.
So there will be no mid-month. Our next meeting will be May 4th. That agenda is starting to grow kind of large as well. So be prepared for possibly another long meeting. Can say there's probably a couple future land use map amendments, some more zone changes, plats, city initiated zone change will be on that agenda as well, for business park zoning for one of our business parks. That's just more of a cleanup. They're already HI and LI. We're just making them BP. As long as I don't get stuck with a lot of other things that should be coming to May. Other than that, I don't think I have any other announcements besides what I mentioned earlier. I believe right now the RFP for the update to Plan Cheyenne is currently in our it's with TJ, so it's with our purchasing manager. Yeah, Charles was going to correct me. It's with our purchasing manager to get that process rolling. So that should hopefully be out shortly, so we can start getting that moving.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else?
Chair, I have
That-
no further updates.
Thank you, sir. With that, I believe we're adjourned.